Three Grots in a Vox is intended for a mature audience. This means there will be crude language and discussions of adult themes, especially if we're talking about Tactical Marines or Gabriel Seth. Viewer discretion is not only advised but encouraged. All opinions are our own and often given for humorous purposes. Any advice is given largely for entertainment purposes and would probably be ignored. But if you do learn something useful, count it as a win.
See, now you said you're like, I'm ready to introduce, and I put you on the spot. And
hello and welcome to this fresh tournament-winning Blood Angels commander, and the episode that he planned to bitch about everything, but instead now he's won a tournament. He will actually say how amazing everything is. Welcome to the latest episode of Three Grots in a Vox.
See,
your host today
is.
I have no idea if I'm up or down in the.
You're right in the middle.
Oh, well, that's really unhelpful then. Okay. John, pick up. It's your turn. Go. Say something.
I'm just really happy that I have actually some regular clothes on as opposed to the shirt that I was wearing for 6 weeks straight because I had to buy a shirt 2 sizes too big to accommodate my broken arm. So
the smell was getting so bad that I could spot it down here.
Yeah, I got this shirt for Christmas. I was very pleased to finally put on 6 weeks late, and it's nice and fleecy lined, which would have been nice for Christmas. But I mean, wearing it in January in Scotland, it's nice. I'm happy.
You'll still be wearing that in July in Scotland.
Probably, and it is I guess a tournament-winning shirt.
At least you're not wearing your fingerless gloves. So yeah. Did you wear it to the tournament? Is it literally?
No. I had my arm still in the cast, and the tournament was actually good because. I've actually been quite sore this week, first week out of the cast. It's very tender, I guess. So I'd really hoped that they'd put the cast off before the tournament. In actual fact, if they'd taken the cast off for the tournament, I'd have probably not won the tournament because I would have been sore as fuck the whole tournament.
And distracted and it'd be painful and horrible. Yeah.
So, it's good. Tony's at the top. Hello, Tony. How are you doing tonight?
I'm all good. I'm just mind blown by the dreadfulness of our intro that Mark had to salvage. And he did a good job salvaging it.
We'll have to prearrange some cold intros, Brooklyn 99 style, at some point.
Yeah, I mean, now that
people the video starts midway through a conversation where nobody knows what the fuck is going on.
I think, but even into the conversation, nobody knows what the fuck's going on. It's not.
Yes, sounds like our podcast, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. But thank you so much for subscribing. And I guess we should say, if you haven't subscribed yet, then you should definitely do so and join the 1,000 other people that think we know a damn about Warhammer, apparently.
Or enjoy hearing the bollocks we talk.
I
think they probably just enjoy the intro.
Unnecessary amounts.
They're just here to hear drivel. Anyway, Arks of Omen is out. It came out on Saturday, but I don't have my book yet. You guys both got the book?
Yeah. What, this book?
Yes.
No, I haven't got it.
Okay.
Yeah, mine's in.
Okay, his is on the floor for some reason, but okay.
No, that's fair enough.
It's like, fuck it,
and your PSA is, do remember that it has a code in the back for you to put in your My Warhammer account to get access to all the stuff inside the app. And yes, I know I just showed my code off, and yes, I've used it.
Did you see when I did that with the guard one, and I had to cover it up in the edit? With back nipples.
Why didn't you just use the code before it went live?
Because you still can't use it. Still doesn't work.
Oh, because the guard codex isn't a single.
Oh, right.
Because the guard codex hasn't been released. Even though I've had the guard codex now for months, I can't put the code in. It won't accept it.
So when we're filming this, it's going on pre-order in 2 days' time. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Saturday?
Yeah, loads of guard stuff.
When this goes live, it will be pre-ordering and it will be releasing in a couple of days, which is fine.
So I might finally get to activate that code.
Excellent.
I'm surprised I didn't see any guard at the event I was at, actually. So
it's because they're still using the old codex, aren't they?
But if you have the new one, can you use it?
No.
No? It's not official
That's
yet.
why
as far as GW are concerned, at least, until the codex is freely available to everybody, despite the fact they released it early for 4 fucking months for people who could pay up front to buy the limited run. Until it's available to everybody in standard codex, as far as I'm concerned, it's not in play.
Okay. Good to know then.
Which is fair.
So that's why I don't face it.
No, I agree with it, to be honest. So at the moment, Guard, as we're talking, and actually as this comes out, Guard are still using their 8th edition codex.
For a few days.
For a few more days.
Which does mean that the new Guard Codex will be released on one of the days during the LVO. So I imagine
it will be released on the Saturday at LVO. And yeah, did you see what I won at the event? I was very happy about this.
I love that game stores give prizes to 40k winners for anything that is not 40k.
I think he's got a deal on these.
You're playing this game. Play something else. We don't want you playing 40k anymore. Have some Star Wars stuff.
Did they choose it, or were they like, get yourself a box off the thing, and you're like, I'll choose some Star Wars?
No, all the prizes were Legion. It was like if you came third, you got one character. If you came second, you got like a box set of squads, and if you came first, you got like a giant big thing, I guess.
I'm not going to say play it, but to Gavin Miles at least collect it as well.
They do, yes, and they both got something they wanted for their army, so I got the Imperial thing that nobody wants.
Fair enough.
But I mean, I've got the Imperial starter box set, so I'm sure I'll build it at some point. It'll be fun.
At some point.
Imperial's always cooler anyway. Right, considering this is not supposed to be a full episode, it's supposed to be a mini short version.
We're now like going to be
10 minutes in, and we haven't actually started yet.
Okay, and there's 25 slides. It's going to be long as shit. So,
well, there's only one of us who knows what the thing is. So, take us away.
Fasten your seatbelts and buckle up for 25 slides of what the fuck is Art of Omens with pictures. May I just add, with pictures?
No, that's not like you at all. If it was 25 slides of text, I think I'd be banging my head on the table before we got to the end of it.
Even Allspecs Tactics has pictures.
Okay, well, we've got pictures now. We've upgraded. This is a picture they released
a few months ago. That's what the 1,000 subs bought us. It bought us art.
Excellent, and a massive white mouse icon in the middle of the thing as well.
Did I do that? No.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe.
I always get confused when they say winter, because I always think winter is like October, November, December. Anyway, so
that's not how seasons work.
No. Okay, cool.
It's like November, December, January, February, or something.
It's December, January, February. Yeah.
So we have book one. I guess the books are going to be coming out every month-ish if they're going to get all these books out by spring.
Yeah. At the end of spring would be what? May? Yeah.
Yeah. So
June feels summery.
The first book just came out. You have the first book now, right, Tony?
Yeah, I've got it. I'm going to be. You want to go and grab it?
No, we're going to be talking about that next week. So that's why you need to subscribe, so you don't miss any of our episodes.
Talk about boarding actions and all that stuff next week.
Yes, perfect. All right, next slide. That was a quick one.
I understand notifications exist, but it never worked for me. So, yeah, whatever.
So, Arks of Omen, then we'll start with a detachment. If you haven't seen this detachment, I mean, it's been leaked on Warhammer community for a while now.
Yeah, you can't really say leaked when they themselves posted it in full colour and decent quality weeks before the release.
True. And also I put down the Battle Brothers page because when this detachment was first mentioned, people were saying, oh, well, you can do an Arks of Omen detachment plus a patrol or plus a vanguard and stuff, and that's all bullshit. You have an Arks of Omen detachment, and you can do the stuff on the Battle Brothers page here. So it's very limited. And one of the questions that I had actually yesterday when we spoke, Mark, was what do we lose? In the top of the Battle Brothers section, it says if you have an Arks of Omen detachment and it's Imperium, you can take Agents of Imperium, you can take Imperium Knights, or you can take a Votan Patrol.
Yep.
And it sounds like if you take the Votan Patrol, you lose all the things.
Yeah, because Free Blades and Agents of the Imperium have got rules written into them that say they don't break any of your faction purity rules like Doctrines and Savage Echoes and all that jazz, and Votan has none of that.
Yeah, so as much as Games Workshop want to sell Votan, I can't imagine Votan, they won't have any of their judgment tokens, and you'll lose all your detachment abilities. So you won't just lose your super doctrine, you will even lose just doctrines. You will lose everything that give the Space Marines flavour.
Yeah.
So
you still get your chapter tactics.
You would still have your chapter tactic because that's on a per detachment basis. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so but you would actually lose doctrines though, like heavy assault and then your super doctrine, which is a lot to lose. I feel like for a Votan who doesn't get the strength of the Votan is the judgment tokens, so you don't get them.
I quite like that because it means if you've got like the Votan starter box or something, and you're playing a friendly game with your mates, you can, without you suddenly having a completely broken, OP, ridiculous army. It's like there's an option here for doing it if you like narrative or fluffy games.
Yeah, it just
but
feels
it's limited
weird,
enough. You can't run it in
all the other ally options in the rest of this page are all linked to what they're doing and why. So, like, Space Marine legions can have their related demon, which is fine, and Eldar can have Harlequins, which is fine, and Marines can have Votan. Okay.
It's a bit weird we can't have Guard, isn't it?
Yeah, you'd have thought that would have been a lot more straightforward a bring, really, wouldn't you?
You would have, actually, yeah. Anyway, I guess it lets people that bought that small combat patrol box of Votan play those units for 3-6 months and have a bit of fun, I guess. Do either of you guys think this is not the last patch or the last chapter approved of 9th edition? Do you think we're going to 10th? Or I know you had hoped that we weren't going to 10th this year, Mark. How do you think?
Yeah,
I'm revising my hope slightly to something that I feel is a bit more realistic. I think it is incredibly unlikely that we're not getting a new core rulebook in summer. It's been 3 years since the last one. Dragging it for another year is completely against any sort of precedent GW's had for 3 or 4 editions now at this point. I hope that it's not 10th edition. I hope that it's 9.1.
Or 9.5 or something, yeah. Could be. I mean, 9 has been a lot... I had a lot of comments this week, I guess, because Arks of Omen's come out and some people are finding Marines very difficult to play. And
imagine a new rulebook where they don't change any of the key or core rules or how stuff work, but they just iterate on it.
Hang on. That would be like every rulebook from 4th to 7th.
Where they just incorporate all of the FAQs, the updates, the wording clarifications.
That's all the additions up to 8th when we had the big reset. Everything from 3rd was just a slight iteration and minor changes and clarifications and tweaks to the previous one. There were 7 of them in a row that it started to get quite... But the basic core principle and the core way the game played was 3rd. Just tweaked.
To a degree. Depends on what your class as major change. But
some were bigger than other ones. The one between 3rd and 4th was pretty minor. Between 6th and 5th was a little bit bigger, but between 7th and 6th was so close you could actually use the same stuff. They reused the same start set.
And once they do a new core book, there's a new box set with new models in it, and they start redoing the codices all over again and stuff. It just, I don't know. Hopefully the codex creep between editions won't be as bad as it's been, given how bad GW has been burnt with it over the last 2 years.
Yeah, and also I was thinking about it just came up there. There's still chapters that haven't had a codex in 9th, which is pretty crazy.
You're absolutely right. Any the Raven Guard, the White Scars, the Ultramarines, Iron Hands, Salamanders, I think there's another one.
Imperial
Fists.
No one cares
all
about them.
Are working off 8th edition codex supplements still.
Yeah, and we'll maybe get into that actually later today.
Guilliman
because
is still working off an 8th ed codex supplement.
Yeah, because we might want to talk for a few minutes about Guilliman. Okay, so this is your detachment. It is very different. We already did a video on the detachment.
I like it.
We will...
I really like it.
Yeah, I hope that this is something that does stay for 10th. This would be wicked. Just get rid of all the other detachments. Just have that, and you can go, right, I'm going to theme my army for 10th edition, and have at you.
You can't go overboard, or at least too overboard in everything. It's relatively balanced. You got to bring a reasonable amount of stuff. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, we'll get to them later, but my army list for my custodes in this version is more balanced than the old one, because the old one I could do things like, which is what I did do, which is run a double Vanguard, which gave me 12 elite slots to play with.
Yeah,
I can't do that anymore. I've got 6 and I can live with it.
Same with Eldar, running stupid amounts of fast attack slots and all this sort of thing.
So this is actually more balanced, weirdly. It's forced me to diversify my army a little bit.
Sure, that's good, because that was the skew list that I was getting very upset with about Blood Angels, where people were doing like Vanguard Patrol just to take like 10 elites or whatever it is, and just all Death Company and Sanguinary Guard. And I was saying, when they nerf Death Company and Sanguinary Guard, Blood Angels are going to have a hard time. And guess what happened? They nerfed them because there was that skew list, right? So yeah,
okay, yeah,
cool.
Right.
Let's move on.
This is enough to theme your army, but it's not enough to go stupid with.
To break it, yeah. Okay.
What
do you think,
the main thing I like is how elite characters are no longer taking up elite slots, because some armies that have elite characters
It was a bit. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm really pleased about that. That's the thing I'm most pleased about. The rest I can sort of fine.
And the folding in of Lords of War and folding in of fortifications and all the other random stuff that didn't quite work properly when you tried to put them in separate detachments. It just works.
Yeah, I really like the way they've done that.
Yeah,
Why
because
couldn't it have been this simple before? But well, there you go.
Because the Lord of the War, there was like a specific FAQ where it was like, if they share a keyword, then you can get the CP refunded, and it's just extra headache you didn't need.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at the. We're talking about elite characters, and this is the most extreme example that I can think of off the top of my head. But it is an example because you want these characters because they're cool and they're fluffy. And this is the Sisters of Battle book.
Yes.
And just counting elite characters. So hang on. So we have got Astrid Thurger with whatever she is, that banner lady. We've got an Imagifer. We've got a Dialogus. We've got a Preacher. We've got a Hospitalia. We've got a Dogmata, and we've got a Superior. They're all elite characters. That's bonkers. If you wanted to run them, you couldn't, basically, because if you ran the elite characters, which look great with your army, you couldn't have any actual elite squads. So being able to just separate them out a little bit, I think is brilliant.
Cool. All right. Well, let's hope they continue that. Thumbs up for that. Then let's move on. The next few slides are like actual just talking about or they're looking at the first section of the book where it talks about command points. It talks about how you have to pay for your warlord traits and your relics.
So we now start 6 CP. No matter what the battle size is, you start with 6 CP.
Yeah, and I was going to say we can sort of go through these reasonably quickly unless there's anything you guys want to specifically call out.
No, so you get 6 CP even though in the beginning of one of the books it said you get 4 CP.
Yep, that did get errated in the FAQ earlier today.
There's so many mistakes with this book. It is ridiculous. I've never seen so many in one pamphlet. Basically, although I'm taking the piss calling it a pamphlet, it's actually a fairly chunky book compared to some of the ones. Remember the first or second one we had?
It's because they put the rules in
second
back
one
again.
was ridiculous.
Had it out.
25 quid of stupid.
Anyway.
Okay, so do we want to roll on?
Yeah,
you've still got to buy your warlord trait and relic. That's not changed.
Yeah,
that's fine.
And heroic support is the new thing. Yeah. Where if you want to run 2 captains or something else that's not allowed to have 2 of an attachment, then you can do that now as well.
Yeah, that's fine. That's good. I like that.
It upsets Farsight Enclaves players though.
Oh no, what a shame.
And rightly so, actually, because their special source is they lose access to all the other characters, but they're allowed to take 2 commanders. But because of the wording of this, heroic support only lets you take an extra character if you're only allowed to take 0 to 1. So the fact that normal Tau can only take 0 to 1, Farsight Enclaves lose their other ones but gain an extra one. They can't have a third one for. So now there's just no reason to take them.
Yeah, and
there's all the drawbacks and none of the benefits.
I was going to say there's a few weird interactions, and I've got one that I want to mention later on, which I guess it's just like some of those rulebooks were written 2 years ago now, and this is sort of like a catch-all for the last 6 months of the edition, so some things are going to slip
you can tell they've copy-pasted a bit too much stuff and haven't been through it with a fine-toothed comb.
Yeah, which they're probably using the fine-toothed comb in the 10th edition or the 9.5 edition, as you said. All right, so we start with 6 CP, and we've got our 1 detachment, and we've got our stratagems. Let's move on.
Yep. All right.
What changes here? Anything in the deployment, etc. The only thing I'm aware that changes, and like I said, I don't have the book, is that strategic reserves do not cost power level base CP anymore. That's gone.
That's it. Everything else is the same.
I assume that you still have to have.
As well. Is that on this page?
How do you mean?
Flyers.
What about them?
You have to deploy them off the table. You can't. You have to deploy them in strategic reserve now.
You do. I think that's in. It is in here. You're right.
Yeah. So that's another change. Flyers now, you can't deploy them on the battle. They come on from strategic reserve in turn 2. Now, what's important to remember is something the market's really upset about with flyers coming on from strategic reserve. They can come on anywhere. You do get upset.
I don't get upset. I just get.
They can come on anywhere on the board. They don't have to come on from a table edge like normal strategic reserves do.
Yep.
There's a few people running around saying this is a nerf. It feels like a buff to me, to flyers.
A lot of people who said it's a nerf don't seem to know that they can come on as per deep strike and have to sit on the edge of the board.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I guess if you had like 2 Daka jets or something, and you just want to suicide one of them into the enemy.
It's a nerf if you were using them for bombing runs.
Yeah.
And then you're bombing flying off the board, so there is uninteractable damage being done. But
if you were worried about getting them shot off the table, which is what Space Marine ones are, because our flyers are expensive and they're easy to kill, being able to start them for free off the board, especially bigger ones like Storm Ravens or Thunderhawk gunships for nothing, is spectacular.
And guarantee they get a turn where they come in.
They're at least going to shoot something.
Get to act,
What's I assume the rule for strategic reserve is still the same in that you have to have less than half your points off the board unless you have a rule
that's not
exempts that, and it has to be less than the number of units. So if you have 6 units in your army, 3 of them need to be on the board.
There's another exemption to it as well, which is if you've got an army where a flyer is more than half, it's still strategic reserve. You just got to put the rest of it on the board.
Okay, cool. Okay.
So if you were playing a 1,500 point game with a Thunderhawk in it,
and you were mental enough to take a Thunderhawk, yes, okay.
So I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but in section 10, where it's declare reserves and transports, that's like 2/3 of the way down the paragraph that starts no more than half.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so there's nothing else really to say there. Everything else
is more or less as it
the
was.
same. Okay, let's move on. Pre-game, nothing really changes.
Nah.
So Arks of Omen secondary objectives, and I do have a lot of stuff in about secondary objectives over the next few pages. I think we'll cover the 6 basic secondary objectives, or this. It's probably 8 basic
categories.
ones.
Or is it 5 categories?
I think it's 5 categories. I don't know why I said 6. I think I put 2 per page and I got confused. There is this one new page that says some like Space Marine stuff.
All right.
So
what does it say?
It basically
what Space Marine
says
stuff is that, John?
You get to choose you can have the 3. You can have any of the 3 random Space Marine ones, and then you can have the one that's chapter specific. I honestly didn't read the bit about successor chapters. Did either of you guys?
Okay. Well, I've got it here, so I'll read it out because I think it might be important here. So I'll just read the section. If its player's Arks of Omen detachment is either Adeptus Astartes or Traitoris Astartes detachment, and every unit from their army, excluding Agent Imperium, blah, 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 is from the same chapter or legion, that player can also select from the appropriate chapter or legion secondary objectives. For example, if every unit from a player's army is from Dark Angels, that player can select 1 or more secondary objectives from Adeptus Astartes and 1 or more from the Dark Angels.
But there only is 1 now.
Yeah. Successor chapters and legions. If your Arks of Omen detachment is Adeptus Astartes detachment, you can select the faction secondary objective of your chapter's first founding. If you do so, your chapter's units count as having the keyword for their first founding chapter for the purposes of the secondary objective. So what this means is, if you are a Flesh Terror, you can take the Blood Angels one. That's it, really.
Okay, and the only exception is Black Templars. So, yes, you definitely haven't been through this one on Fine and Cone, because it says you can take 1 or more Dark Angel secondary. There will only be 1 Dark Angel secondary in this new book.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I guess they forgot to remove the and more. Okay. So, yeah, so that's pretty much what it was before, right? They just removed a bunch of secondaries from Space Marines mainly, because the non-Space Marine factions have kept theirs.
Space Marines had access to all the ones in Codex Space Marines and the ones in their supplements as well. It was a buffet of choice. It was huge. It was a massive advantage, assuming that they were all valid and useful.
They really had 2 ways they could go with it, didn't they? They could say you either take all of them from your supplement, or you take them all from the Space Marine one, or they just amalgamated the 2. And I think that's what they went with to just cut down the sheer number of interactions.
Yeah, it seems strange that then Space Marines were all on the lowest win rates, but I guess let's never mind about that.
Well, it's just bookkeeping. That's all it's trying to do. You look at someone like, I don't know, Tau or Orcs or something, you've just got a few in the book, that's all you get.
Yeah.
And every one of those has got to be balanced against the others. And if they're not quite balanced, you end up with situations like that stupid Necron one that meant you could win
Every game.
by sitting around.
Yeah.
So they've done this to
Ancestors.
just simplify it a little bit, and that's reasonable, I think.
I appreciate the less amount of variables, the easier it is to simplify. But hey,
Yeah.
it's a shame that some of the variables.
Whether they
we
do a
have
good
to
job
use-
of simplifying them or not,
We're
or
good.
sorry, of fixing them is irrelevant. And
Sorry,
another
John.
story.
Please continue.
No, I wasn't going to say anything else beyond. Here's another picture of Horus.
And that's Horus.
That's not Horus.
Abaddon.
It's a,
Oh, Abaddon in the background. Sorry, it looks like
Yeah.
Horus. I mean,
And
he's the same Legion.
Vashtor.
I mean, I could be in the red
the
first.
weird demon who's not the Omnissiah, honest gov, really, but really is.
no, he's not. He's a demon, isn't he? They've said he's supposed to be like a fifth chaos power who wants to be treat. I've got the book. I've been reading.
He's separate to the existing chaos gods. He's like a mercenary for them, but he wants to be on a par with the existing 4 chaos major powers.
So
yes.
he's working to be a fifth chaos god.
Yeah.
See the crazy new model that they showed off, yeah?
Oh,
Yeah.
it's wonderful. His area of interest, so obviously Nurgle is disease and Khorne is blood and skulls and all this sort of stuff. Vashtor's area of influence is crazy, weird innovation in a scientific and technological sense.
It's technologies. He's like techno god, isn't he?
Yeah.
Supposedly. I don't like the new model.
Don't you?
He's got a weird face. Yeah. I just didn't like it at all.
He has got a weird face, but I think that's part of the demon.
Yeah, it obviously is. It's a design decision that I just don't like very much. And that's fine. I don't have to like every model.
No, you don't have to.
Okay, so let's roll on then. What we got here, John?
So yeah, I guess we're starting with assassination, or purge the enemy assassination. I guess the same category thing. Yeah, so they've made slight tweaks, but not to all of them. Assassination has had a small tweak, so at the end of the battle round, if an enemy character unit was destroyed by a result of an attack made by troops, or an armiger, or a war dog, then you gain a command point. And then it's your standard 3 for killing a character, and then a +1 for killing the warlord. Though when I read this, I really just felt like, well, that's a nice buff for knights, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a nice buff for anybody with good troops, really, isn't it?
Yeah, which is not many.
No,
Yeah.
but you might be able to stack something up. Some of the Votan ones are fairly tasty.
That's fine.
Even Eldar, you can put a heavy weapon platform in your troop squad and shoot someone with a bright lance.
Do you know what the commonality is in which ones got that buff and which ones didn't, John? The 3 default secondaries that the book says take these if you can't decide are all the ones that get a CP if a troops do it.
Oh, I'm not understanding you. I'm sorry.
Okay,
They're
so
really trying to push you to take troops, John, is what he's getting at.
by default, the game says you get 3 secondaries, which are grind them down, assassination, and behind enemy lines. Those 3, they're the ones with the box around them. Yeah,
I see. Yeah, the default ones. Yes.
yeah, those 3 are the ones that got that. You get a CP if a troops does this.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I don't have the book in front of me, so it wasn't obvious as much when I was
fair.
putting the pictures in. Yeah, but I mean, I guess maybe you can put a combi melta or a thunderhammer into your Space Marine troops, and maybe you can luck out. But for the most part, I think it's just a buff for knights. Did knights need this buff? I don't know.
I don't know, like you got a big unit of assault intercessors fighting twice with a thunderhammer in there. That's going to muller any character it hits, really.
It'll be nice when it happens.
You're
But it's
not
not
to
something
let you
you're not gonna like rely on it or build on it or anything.
You're not going to plan around it, but it's one of those, if you get a chance to spank a character with a troops unit for an extra CP, you're going to take it.
Bring it
'Cause
down.
this is
Hasn't
any
changed, has
character.
it?
You know?
No, Bring It Down has not changed. It's exact same. I mean, I'm glad that that's another thing that might be nice. Like you talk about going into like a new half edition or something. If you remember at the start of this edition, we did have Bring It Down in Titan Hunter, and it was ugly and it was messy. So at least now it's all kind of nice and uniform.
It has been iterated on over the course of 9th Ed, and it's become a lot more interesting now than it was at the start of 9th Ed. And to be fair, it was pretty interesting at the start of 9th Ed.
Okay, so Bring It Down is.
I rather like where they've got the boundaries as well. That works out quite nicely.
The tweaks they've done with secondaries overall, yeah, they've had good results, I think.
Yeah, I don't think I've got any. I'd like to see some better balance between the secondaries, but I think it has been a step in the right direction. I hated secondaries in 8th edition, or just scoring in general in 8th. I thought it was terrible. So the night scoring is much
where
better.
the weird stuff comes from. But well,
Yeah.
Okay.
No mercy, no respite. We have grind them down, and like you said, if you kill one of the units with troops, I guess, or armiger or a war dog, you're going to get 1 CP.
Well, you got a chance of killing an random enemy unit with a troops unit. It's not impossible.
Yeah, I mean, that one seems better, but grind them down in general seems like it's a very situational pick. You pick it against an army that has few drops, don't you?
Because there's whole units, so it really depends on what sort of army you're playing as. If you're playing knights or custodes or something, you're unlikely to lose more than one.
You pick it as a low drop army compared to a high drop army. If your enemy's got loads of units and you've got not very many.
Yeah.
If you're fighting guard or something, they've got a million little infantry squads and that running around. This is not a bad pick.
I guess no prisoners, no changes.
Yep.
Again, grind them down and no prisoners. It's kind of obvious when you should pick those.
Every time I took grind them down, I always did really badly with it, and no prisoners just became my default one for consideration in this category.
Yeah,
I quite like it when I'm running custodes. I don't run it for my Space Marines.
That's fair. Maybe if I was running knights properly, I'd be more interested in it. But
especially if you've got like 3 models, then it's unlikely they're going to kill more than you do.
Yep,
very true.
If they do, then you've already lost.
All right, well, shall we move on?
Yeah, go for it.
I also really like how this edition they've put down the faction secondaries these things conflict with on the page. I mean, that's really nice.
Which has started in the last couple of chapter approved. It's really helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, so
the last couple of chapter approved have been really well laid out, I think.
Yeah. Ever since they took the points book out of the chapter approved, it's like we actually now are paying attention to what people are asking for, and we'll make it user friendly and interesting as much as we can.
All right, so we're now going to get the same. We're going to score 3 victory points rather than 2, right?
Yep.
If you have a single enemy in the opponent's deployment zone.
That's just confusing. That's the wrong way round.
Why?
Abhor the Witch is the next page. Behind enemy lines is the page after that.
Oh, well, I didn't have the book, man. I didn't have the book.
That's really confusing. I was like, what? What?
Anyway,
way round.
So behind enemy lines, really, sorry to say it, Blood Angels players, but it makes not shock tactics, makes Relentless Assault look like a piece of shit now. Because it's going to be dead easy to do behind enemy lines with troop units.
Yep.
And it might be even, look, correct me if I'm wrong here, I can do behind enemy lines with my Voidsmen. They are troops. And I will be getting 1 CP every turn for a 40-point unit of Voidsmen I can just drop into the corner. They didn't say anything about faction purity.
Yep.
So whereas by Relentless Assault I can only score with Blood Angels units, behind enemy lines, I think Relentless Assault was the wrong one for them to keep for Blood Angels. But anyway.
Oh, totally. I completely 100% agree with you.
Oh, cool. Okay, well, behind enemy lines is great now. It's going to generate you 5 CP a turn, or not 5 CP a turn, 4 or 5 CP throughout the game.
Relentless Assault feels like the easiest one that would fit all Blood Angels armies, no matter what approach they took, and is therefore the most boring and bad one to do, where they could have done one that was actually interesting.
And with the changes to shock tactics, which we'll get to, the event... Oh, hold on. At the event that I won, just let me say that.
You won. Do you win an event?
I won. I did win an event. I took shock tactics every game. Because I figure you have to flip objectives, you have to take objectives from the enemy, so I'll just take 4 points additional every time I'll do that, right?
Choosing a secondary that leads into how you're playing the game normally is always a good thing to do. Always.
I did go into the event thinking I'm taking shock assaults or shock tactics or relentless assault in every game, and it just turned out that it made sense in the battles that I had to take shock. Anyway, engage all fronts. There's no change. Is there?
Yes,
is there a change?
There is
a
change. If you are trying to score relentless engage on all fronts in 4 quarters, the distance has been reduced from 6 inches away from a line to 3 inches away from a line.
Oh wow! Okay.
So if it's 3 quarters, you still have to be 6 inches away from any other quarter. If you're doing 4 quarters, you only have to be 3 inches away from any other quarter. So it's a little bit easier to score the 4 quarters.
Okay, that seems fair.
Because that change just drove engage on all fronts completely out of consideration for the vast majority of people.
I stopped taking it.
Yeah, I used to swear by it and never take it anymore. So maybe I'll take it now. All right, Abhor the Witch, Warp Ritual, and Psychic Interrogation and Warpcraft are up next. What changes do we have? Do we have any?
Abhor the Witch is basically the same. Psychic Interrogation got nerfed heavily, and Warp Ritual got nerfed minorly. And I know all of this because it's been all over the Eldar forums and Eldar discords and stuff.
Oh, cool. Well, do you want
to Psychic Interrogation, you now need line of sight, don't you? That's the big nerf.
Is that the only change?
No. Technically, you need to be the one doing the Psychic Interrogation needs to be within 24 inches of an enemy character, and needs to be able to see any other enemy character. They don't need to be the same.
Okay.
If I can see an enemy character on the opposite corner side of the board, but I'm within 24 inches over here, then that's fine. That fulfills them. The warp charge threshold for casting has also gone up.
Oh, so it has. It used to be 4, right? It's gone up to 5?
Yep.
So it just removes it from so much of an auto cast. 5 in the reroll is still pretty good. You can reroll a command reroll psychic action, yeah?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
You can.
I don't run them very often.
It's not nerfed it into the ground, but it's nerfed it out of being an auto take, and it was an auto take for a number of army builds.
Okay, and what's changed with Warp Ritual? What's made it worse?
They've bumped the warp charge up from 3 to 4.
Oh, again, okay. 4 actually feels like a very solid cast, though, I think.
Yeah. Now it's kind of here or there as to whether you want to take Warp Ritual or Psychic Interrogation, and it's a nice and easy choice, really.
I was going to say, the armies that took them will still take them, probably. They'll just be slightly less reliable.
The consensus in the Eldar discords and communities I'm a part of seem to be that they're going to be more interested in Warp Ritual for being able to perform safely on a consistent and successful basis, even though it caps out at 12, because it's just too easy for an enemy army to blank you with line of sight for all their characters and shut you down on that.
Which is cool, because I want to get them away from, like, when you go into events and you just see armies scoring automatically 100 points every turn, or every game, rather. I kind of want to get away from that. So if this is a change that gets away from that, it's probably a good change.
Yeah, it is.
You've got to risk your characters a little bit more, which I quite like.
Yeah. Okay. And a boar is still the same old. If you're fighting Thousand Sons of Grey Knights, take a boar. If you're not, probably don't.
Cool. All right. Is there another page? I don't remember.
Yeah. We haven't done retrieve battlefield data yet.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So shadow operations. Have you guys been over these? Is there any changes?
I mean, it's now called retrieve battlefield data, so they've stopped giving it a silly new geographical based name. Everything.
Thank God for that, because it was what was it? It was
retrieve Octarius, Nephilim.
Battlefield.
Was that all of them?
RBD then.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
4, 8, 12. I believe that is completely identical, and I believe Razor Banner's High is also identical.
Cool. Okay, I mean they're still
pretty good.
But yeah, they're good. I think Banners is map dependent, and
absolutely, it's map and number of objectives dependent, which is fair.
Yeah, and RBD I guess is
it kind of
dependent.
It synergizes with the sticky objectives Marines now get in a way.
True.
Yeah,
get a banner up and fuck off for another banner.
I quite like banners, actually, to be honest. That's if I get a chance to take it, I often do, because it fits my kind of fairly stoic style of playing.
My criteria is if I can be on 3 objectives at the early turn 1, then I'll take it. If I can't, then I probably won't.
Cool.
Okay. All right.
So
basic categories.
I was going to say, overall, the basic categories.
There's some pretty strong picks.
I was going to say small improvements, but overall...
They're a lot more tweaked and internally balanced with each other as well across the board.
I think the biggest winner is behind enemy lines, honestly. Doing that with troops is going to be super easy.
I'd agree.
Especially with guerrilla tactics, Blood Angels troops. I
quite like all of them, actually. There's situations where I like them. I really like the change to Assassinate. I know that you don't rate it that highly, but there's a lot of apothecaries and banner bearers and ancients and all this sort of shit running around that are just waiting for a Thunderhammer.
Oh, Assassinate's great. It's wonderful.
I think that's a great one, especially if you're going to bring a few troops to get it. I think it's got a nice few options there behind enemy lines, like you say. Engage, I think, is doable now. Maybe not the best pick, but it's still not bad.
I like that the I like that the theme is like you're rewarded for bringing troops as opposed to forced to bring troops. I like that.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's less of a tax and more of a benefit or a reward for doing it.
It's very interesting to see lists now going, oh, we don't have to take troops anymore. Woo! Oh, I want to bring a unit or two of troops now. Ooh. This feels weird. Ooh.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was. I was convinced before I went to the event. I was like, after this event, I'll never take 3 troops again. And then after the event, I was like, man, having 3 troop units is pretty fucking useful for Marines, isn't it?
Yeah. Especially now they're so cheap.
Yeah.
They're cheap, they're utility units, they can do all sorts of useful little things.
Okay.
I like my troops.
For secondaries here, we're probably only going to touch on Space Marine secondaries, because we are primarily talking Space Marines. I guess if we want to touch on space secondaries for another faction, one of you guys will need to put a slide together for the ones you want to talk on, because I don't know shit about the other factions.
Fine. No worries.
Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Plus, we'll be here all
I mean,
night.
it's a bit late saying it now, isn't it?
When you put it together, that's
for
what we're
20
looking at.
minutes ago.
Hang on. Well, what are the next 15 slides then?
Have you done 15 slides on fucking Space Marines?
No. We made some army lists. We've got Pile of Glory in there.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough.
Jesus, I mean, I like Space Marines, but they're a bit
I made this
boring.
on Tuesday, and I honestly don't really remember because it was 2 days ago.
Okay, so about 40 minutes in, this is how long it's taken for Tony to break out his potty mouth, having said, before the stream, we should probably not start swearing quite as much anymore.
No, we're 40 minutes in.
Intermittent swearing's okay.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, infrequent.
Infrequent. All right,
You
Codex
wankers.
Warfare. Can I just say that I hate Codex Warfare now?
No, you only hate it because of Iron Hands and Devastated Doctrine. That is the only reason why you hate it.
I don't get why they get the benefit of scoring 2 when Assault Doctrine. It should just be 2. If you make it 2 for Devastator, just make it 2 for all of them.
They get that benefit because I suspect they wrote that before making it so that Doctrines could stay throughout the entire game and then forgot to go back and change it. Or didn't
you think?
The implications.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
I
you got
think
40 minutes in before you started bitching about Iron Hands. So.
Iron Hands have a pretty strong secondary, I'll tell you that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If they change that to 1 VP...
They'd still probably get 50 victory points because they kill your own army with shooting. If we're talking about trying to get away from secondaries that auto score 15, then this is completely the opposite of that. Because
well, you know how you get around it.
Tell me.
Bring 6 units.
Well,
they grind
it's
them
a
down.
little bit hard to do when they
Play
make all the
knights.
Space Marine things 100 points. But yeah, I get you.
Knights. There you go. I've only got 3 models. Well done. You got 6 points.
I was going to say, even
Well, you
like
can
a
have a
knight.
Tech Marine, a Falcon, an Astraeus, and a Thunderhawk.
I think the best list is 1 Thunderhawk and 2 Astraeus.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Is Purge the Enemy the same category as Bring It Down?
I don't know. Scroll back a couple of pages.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, because I was going to say, if that synergizes, that's horrific. Alright, I suppose against a Knight army, they would Bring It Down anyway, so they'd cap. But yeah, I don't think... I think this one's just made it too easy for Iron Hands, honestly.
That want to stay in Devastator Doctrine all game, it is broken. I agree.
Yeah, it's made it an auto 15, which I think they were trying to get away from. So anyway,
Yes.
if
I
you
don't
are...
know why it's 2 VP. That's the bit I don't understand.
That's what I said,
I just explained it.
Yeah, I know you explained it, but even with your explanation, I know it's only it's the only one that's only active or was only active for a maximum of 1 turn.
One turn, yeah. When it was 1 turn, it makes sense.
Yeah, I agree, but not for the whole game. It's just too powerful.
How about if they changed it so that even though doctrines can stay put for as long as you want them to, what about if they changed that to turn 1, turn 2 and 3, or turn 3, 4, and 5?
Oh, right, so it's a bit like Montcalf, so you would pick for early game or late game.
Well, so you scored 2 VP for everyone killed in Devastated Doctrine in the first turn.
I'm with you.
So even if you extended Devastated Doctrine, you wouldn't count as scoring VP for it if you shot.
So
stuff in
yeah,
turn
so
2.
instead of being what doctrine you're in, it's what turn it's in.
Yeah.
So the first one is in turn 1,
yeah.
in turn 2 and or 3, and then from turn 4 and 5, say.
That would balance it. They should probably... A caveat might just be that you can only get 12 from the same doctrine. So, like, at some point, Iron Hands, if they want to get 15, they need to move out of the one doctrine,
Or
right?
5 from the same doctrine, because that would make it 15. Which
I think
that's Codex Warfare then, isn't it?
But then...
It is.
Then you get the problem where, like, a Blood Angels player will only ever score 5, so you're never going to pick it. Or, like...
We've got plenty of guns.
That also puts it right back to where it was previously.
Yeah, when nobody picked it.
And we've got loads of guns, though. You know, the idea that Blood Angels can't score because it's not melee, my Plasma Devastators, or, Redemptor Dreadnoughts say, actually, I can occasionally kill something.
To be
fair, just have one less AP.
Just because we don't take lots of heavy and grenade weapons doesn't mean we can't.
Yeah, I suppose we could debate this, but yeah, it needs a change. It shouldn't be you just kill 7 things with Iron Hands across the whole game and you're basically capped. I mean, it's too easy.
Oh yeah, totally agree.
That's ridiculous.
Shock Tactics hasn't changed since the last round of patch. It's fine. I like it. Basically, you flip 3 objectives throughout the game. You get 12. If you manage to flip the 4, then you get 15. Shock Tactics is fairly decent. It does require you to lose troops or whatever to do it because you'll be flipping with Marines, but I like Shock Tactics. I think it's a fine secondary.
Yeah,
I think it's good secondary.
Move from 1 to 1, and that's fine.
With behind enemy lines being so easy now, though, it may actually, like, if there's a piece of terrain you can deep strike a unit of Voidsmen which are free to put in reserve and a unit of any sort of troops that are free to put in the reserve, that might just be an auto pick now, though, depending on the opponent. Because you're going to get CP for doing that as well, right? So it's like 4 extra CP as well.
In theory, it could become an auto pick. In practice, once people start taking a unit of infiltrators, deploy them here, and a unit of infiltrators and deploy them here, and screen out both sides, then that sort of thing's going to become unreliable fast.
True. And then Oath of Moment got changed back. So, the last edition, it was like you only got 1 VP for scoring the center, and couldn't...
it was core only,
I think it was core and character, so they just removed all that bullshit.
Yeah.
Anyone can hold Oath in the middle. I really think
2 points in anyone,
they should have made Oath the end of your turn, though, because not many faction secondaries require you to score at the end of the battle round.
The fact that it's a 50-50, whether it's good or bad, is...
And you have to pick it beforehand.
It's not great.
No, it's not great.
It's not enough to dissuade you from taking it, but it's not great.
See, I don't like it anyway, and I don't like building for it. I think it's a bad one to build for because there are enough factions out there that are better at it than you are.
And can just shoot you off something.
Yeah, and if you've gone, right, I'm going to go hard into building this rock-hard core that's going to hold the middle of the board, and then you're like, well, this Custodes player says, no, I'm having the middle of the board, you fucked. Or Death Guard, because they're better at it. They stick a big unit of Blight Lords on there. It's their middle, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you've just built your whole army around a secondary you can't score. So I just don't think it's a good one to build for.
Fair enough.
I guess situationally it's a fallback one though, and it's probably if you're in a bad matchup and they're not going to hold the middle, then you're going to get 10 to 12 points for it.
I mean, destroying a character vehicle or unit every turn is still a point. Not falling back a unit every turn is still a point. So it's still scoring.
Yeah.
Essentially,
It's scoring 8 without doing much, and if by some miracle you hold the middle for 2-3 turns, then you're up to 14 very quickly.
Yeah, which is always its strength.
I think it's one to keep around if you've got stuff that could potentially... So say you're playing someone who's quite fragile or something like that, and you think, right, brilliant, I can play Oaths then. I just wouldn't build into it.
Yeah, that's fair to say. But yeah, it really should be the end of your turn. When I first started reading it, I thought they changed it to end of your turn. I was like, oh, thank God they changed that. It makes so much sense. And then I was like, oh, they didn't change it. I'm an idiot. And I'm also now disappointed because apparently I read rules too quickly and get excited. But yeah, okay. Let's move on. Space Marines.
Oh, have we skipped some stuff?
No,
I feel like we skipped something.
I wanted to continue to speak about Space Marines and tell you about something that I learned that maybe you don't know.
Okay. Tell us. Tournament
winner,
John Stewart.
Exactly, and I learned it about the tournament. On this map here, I've drawn the 5 objectives that were on the map with purple circles, so you can see them.
How can you tell? What were you using to map them? Oh,
clear
there's
objective
little
markers.
I can see the reflections now that I'm looking for them.
Yeah, there's clear objective markers. It's not very easy to see.
Not sure I like that, but all right.
So, go ahead and read the bottom bullet point. At the end of the command phase, if one or more Adeptus Astartes troops units from your army within range of objective markers you control, then that objective marker remains under your control if there's no models within range of it. Now, that says command phase, right? So, if you are using Phobos troops to forward deploy on objectives, and you go first, then you potentially hold those objectives. So, you have this map isn't the perfect example, but imagine if these buildings were on these corner ones, top left and bottom right. You'd start your units on those objectives. The first turn happens, you control them because they're sticky objectives. Now, what typically happens as a Space Marine player in these sort of games is you will need to keep the models on those objectives just sort of 1 inch from the edge of the terrain so that you hold them. Then what will happen is they will move up, they will charge you only 1 inch from the terrain. It's an easy charge. What you can do now is once you have your infiltrators in both corners, you can literally pull them back away from the edges of the terrain, as far away from the opponent as possible, essentially cutting off their ability to charge onto the objective and contest you and kill you, but you still hold the objectives. So
guerrilla tactics, one of them if you want to.
Yeah, or that. And there could even be an argument if there was a bit of terrain in the middle of the map. You just start your guys on the middle of the map. You go first while you've stickied the middle of the map. I'll instantly guerrilla tactics those guys out of there in turn 1, because if I don't, they're fucking dead, and it's an easy charge because they're in the middle of the map. And basically, they're going into turn 2 thinking, I can't charge onto any of the objectives, so I'm going to have to advance, because all those objectives are quite far from my deployment zone, and when I advance, I'm not as shooty or I'm not as killy or whatever, but I'm going to have to do that because otherwise they're going to control 4 objectives. And I used this a couple of times, actually. In one of the games against Tau, I popped a unit out with, like, essentially another unit as a decoy, because I was thinking, like, I really want him to kill this decoy unit. Like, my whirlwind actually came out of cover and went onto an objective.
Right.
But troops went onto the objective as well. And I was like, he's going to shoot the whirlwind. Like, why would you not shoot the whirlwind if I give you that target? Because he's Tau, and he knows if he kills the whirlwind, it's turning off his Overwatch every turn, right? He likes Overwatch, he's Tau. He's going to shoot the whirlwind. I'm banking on, he puts a lot of fire into the whirlwind, 1 or 2 of my troops survive that objective that has no cover around it. I will then sticky it, and I'll fuck off the objective. I'll move my troops back into cover, and it'll just be an empty objective in the middle of the map. And on the map that was playing Tau, that was one of the, like, secondary primary plus objectives. So I just started scoring 2 points every round for holding an objective that's out in no man's land that has nothing on it. And the sticky troop part for Marines, used right, is actually really fucking powerful. And I gotcha'd Andrew last night against Iron Hands in the final turn. I said to him, oh, well, I'll take 12 from primary in the final turn because I hold more objectives than you. And he goes, no, you won't. And I was like, well, I've stickied that one. So yes, well, thank you very much. So sticky objectives for Marines is actually quite good. But you need to think about it. But I guess if once you start thinking about it, and you can do things that you maybe didn't think about before. I liked it. I learned a few things in the tournament.
I like it. I feel that in this one, I know you've been slagging it off, John, but I think they've given some Marine buffs in some really interesting and nice sort of places. Especially to sort of like our troops. Our troops have actually had a bit of a, I think they've had a bit of a resurgence. They're no longer attacks. They're a really important, useful part of your army now. Which is good because up until now they've been basically
not in aggressive, killy ways, but in actual useful utilitarian ways.
Tactical, winning games ways. Because like you were saying with your guerrilla tactics or you're moving around troops and stuff, those troops are winning you the game. They might not have killed anything, but they've still won you the game. It wasn't the sanguinary guard there. It's the troops that are scoring the points, and that's great. That's what they're for.
Yeah. So,
I
did actually think about this. I haven't read too quickly into rules because it's been a while since I used the war. The Phobos captain who has that Lord of Deceit trait.
Yep.
When does that happen?
Indeed. That happens after the first turn roll off.
Perfect. So you could put troops on all 3 midfield objectives. If you do not go first, you pull them all off. If you do go first, then you hold all of them, you sticky all of them, and then you fall back. So
welcome to my Raven Guard world. Yes, absolutely.
Cool. So yeah, how to abuse sticky objectives and Marines. I'm sure there's probably some ways that I haven't even thought of that you can abuse them. But
Candice has
There you
no
go.
chill in the Discord has been looking into using a Reaver Lieutenant for exactly that purpose with Phobos stuff.
I see. So someone has thought about it. Cool.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely
Well,
a
I
thing.
put together a Phobos Lieutenant the other day. I've never painted him. He's sitting there, and I've actually got him, and I'm going to put him together, and I might even use him.
Which
it's a cool model.
which Phobos Lieutenant is it?
The Phobos one, the Lieutenant that comes in the Vanguard Space Marine.
Okay, yeah. The non-Reaver one.
Yeah. Had to think about that.
The Phobos one. It's just called a Phobos Lieutenant.
The guy
rather
that
than
looks
Reaver
he's a
Lieutenant.
special ops out of Call of Duty or something.
Yeah, pretty much. He's got that weird visory thing, which is quite cool.
Mm.
So yeah, I like the model. So it's an
Cool.
excuse to paint him up and use him. Should we roll on then, John?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Oh, we're not going to
There
talk
was
about
an
any
FAQ.
of the secondaries.
I,
Does this go in between? Does it?
Are we just
No.
assuming that Relentless Assault is crap and moving on?
we have said Relentless Assault the Scrap. I didn't do any of the faction-specific secondaries. I just did Codex Space Marines.
Not even Blood Angels.
Well, it's
No,
only
but I
one
mean-
objective, to be fair.
We could talk about it if you want.
I think it's probably worth a quick whiz over a couple of the things that we generally have talked about on our channel and stuff like that. It wouldn't hurt, I don't think.
Okay.
All
Even
right.
if we're only whizzing over them really quickly. John, why don't you tell us quickly why Relentless Assault is shit now?
Well,
Because
'cause
you're the Blood Angels expert.
it's not shit. It just seems like behind enemy lines is going to be more reliable and it's going to give you command points every turn. And behind enemy lines you can do with really cheap units. Like, I guess you could do it cheaply with company veterans now for Blood Angels as well. If you wanted to flood the enemy and have a really small footprint. But Voidsmen at Arms are a really good unit for behind
However,
enemy lines and also Nakban
I
data.
believe there's a size minimum on behind enemy lines, and a squad has to be of a certain size. At
With
which
a-
point, if it's got to be 3 models or more, then that's 60 points worth of company veterans. So,
Well, I don't have the book, sorry.
Probably
Is there a
not.
size minimum on behind enemy lines now?
yeah, I think that's the case. I think there always has been.
Behind enemy lines, score 3 victory points at the end of your turn if one unit from your army, excluding aircraft, is wholly within your opponent's resilience zone. Probably score 4 VP if 2 or more units. In addition, if one of those units doesn't say anything about size,
Oh, what am I
Right,
thinking
behind
of?
enemy
There's
lines.
something that says, oh, engage on all fronts is...
This size.
No.
don't
Yeah.
engage in a front.
Yeah, a qualifying unit has to be starting strength of 3 or more models. So, sorry, I'm
Oh,
getting
yeah, sorry.
confused with engage on all fronts. My bad. Apologies.
So I think,
Yeah.
I think I would just do behind enemy lines. And the thing is, behind enemy lines can't really be countered, whereas Relentless Assault can be countered because they can flood. Like if you're playing Eldar, they're going to flood your objective with troops and jet bikes and all sort of stuff. No.
No. They're not going to
I mean, the argument is with Relentless Assault is you can score it with 1 unit.
True, which you can do for
You just-
1 victory
you-
point
you-
less with
Yeah.
behind enemy lines
But,
now, and you
yeah,
get a command point if you do it with a
You
troop.
charge a guard gun line or something, and you get a point. You get 4 points.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's nice that you can choose between the two, but I agree, John, and I think I'll
Yeah,
be choosing
I
behind
think-
enemy lines more often than the Relentless Assault.
I mean, I got flamed a lot for playing behind enemy lines on my stream, but the reason I was doing it was like, well, I have Voidsmen that are going to come in and do retrieve data, and they don't count for Relentless Assault because they don't
The
have the
synergy's
Binational
great.
keyword.
A number of factions have got secondaries that do actions in enemies' deployment zone as well, and it'll synergize massively well with behind enemy lines.
Yeah, so behind
Are
enemy
you
lines
talking
is probably the big
specifically at
winner.
your Raven Guard one there, Mark?
I'm actually thinking Eldar.
Ah, hang on, what's the Eldar? Let's do the Eldar one because the Eldar's one we talk about, but we'll get to it in a minute.
Okay.
Custodes, what we got? I was just going to go from in order. That's all I was
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Cool.
doing. Custodes, purge the enemy. Okay, so that's the old one you used to have. Auric Mortalis, you can have a fight. It's like Blade of Sanguinius used to be. 5 VP if you select a unit. If they've got, this is basically the most expensive thing, and if it's a Supreme Commander or Primal, you've got to kill it. You get 5 VP if you kill it. You get another 5 VP if you kill it in melee. That's not changed, is it? You get 5 VP if it's not within your deployment zone, which it has changed slightly. It used to be basically if they were over the halfway point on the map, you lost 5 VP, which is why it was awful. Might of Terror 4 VP if you've basically Might of Terror 4 VP if you've killed more of theirs than they've killed of yours. But isn't that
it's
the same as?
it's like a better version of Grind Them Down.
Yeah, so that's not great. And Stand Vigil, if you've got more You get 3 VP if you control more objective markers that are not within either player's deployment zone than your opponent does. So that could be quite good if there's a lot in no man's land and you're just going to sit on them.
Yeah, I mean, it is good on numerous maps, I think.
Yeah. Knights, what have they got? Yield no ground. You control half or more of the total number of objective markers on the battlefield, and 1 or more Imperial Knights models from your army are within range. You score a victory point. If no enemy units are wholly within your deployment zone, you score another victory point. If no Imperial Knights units from your army ended closer to your battlefield edge than were at the start of that turn, and you didn't fall back, you get a third victory point. You get a maximum of 3 per turn. So if you've got more objectives than they haven't got any.
You've kept them out
your deployment zone, and you're closer to the enemy than you were at the start.
You're no further
same.
Away from the enemy.
Yeah, you're no further.
Then that's pretty good. Honor of the House. At the end of a battle round, if you've got 6 honor points, or if you have more honor points than you had at the start of the battle round, score 2 VP. In addition, score 3 additional VP if your army is virtuous, 2 additional VP if your army is honored, and if your army is dishonored, reduce the number of VP you've scored from the secondary objective by 3. Ooh. That's not bad if you've built into that honor point system, which if you remember we said you could do, and you could make that quite powerful.
I think I would do.
Yeah,
it would make sense to do it.
Shadow operations, renew the oaths. Blah blah blah. If you select this objective, Imperial Knights from your army can attempt to do the following action. 1 model from your army performs the action at this end of your movement phase if it's within 6 of the center of the battlefield. The action is completed at the end of your turn, provided the unit is still within 6 of the center. And
so
you get
ultimately, we can stop it there because it's really rewarding, but you're using one of your knights to do an action instead of literally anything else in the game. No,
it only works if you've got chicken knights, I guess.
Can't you get some stuff that lets you do actions and still shoot or something like that? I can't remember if they've got a strat that lets them kill things and do it.
But I
think if they've got
limited, or
if you're going to get spend 1 CP to get 4 victory points.
It's a risk versus reward one. Remember, you can declare the action, and if you shoot your whole rest of your army and then change your mind and you need that knight, you can stop doing the action. So I think that's how you play that one. You always just declare it, and then if you think fuck, I didn't do enough damage, I can stop doing it. For the record, Gav took Imperial Knights with those secondaries because nothing really changed for him. And he scored an 8 in 4 of the games. So Knights secondaries are still super reliable.
Excellent.
They look pretty solid. Mark, do you want to talk us through the Eldar ones?
I can do. So Eldar, as in Craft Worlds, actually lost one of their 4 secondaries. They've now gone down to 3. The one that they lost was one based around holding an objective or the webway gate. If you had a webway gate in your army, it's now gone. They've got a psychic one, which no one ever takes, called Scry Futures, which is a bit crap. They've got 2 which are worth considering. One is Wrath of Cain, which is score a point if an enemy unit is destroyed by range attack by an Aspect Warrior. Score a point if an enemy unit, this is per turn, is destroyed by a shooting attack by an Aspect Warrior. I said that ranged and melee is 2 points. Or you get an extra 2 for a total of 4 in a turn if you do both in the battle round.
Nice.
So it's kind of like a combined arms approach. Yeah. If Aspect Warrior heavy armies will focus in on that and do run it. And the other one, which synergizes incredibly well with behind enemy lines, is called Scout the Enemy.
Yes.
Which Eldar units in your army can perform an action as long as they're outside of your own deployment zone, or not within 6 inches of your deployment zone. They get 2 points for doing it every turn, which is fine. And it completes during that turn if it's a Rangers unit doing it, which is one of their troops. They get an extra 2 VP if they do it wholly within the enemy's deployment zone.
Which is why another reason I was saying against Eldar, Relentless Assault is a bad pick, because they will have multiple units in your deployment zone.
They're highly likely to want to get into your deployment zone.
So behind enemy lines can't be countered, really. They can't have more than you have of theirs, and you're going to get command points for it. So behind enemy lines is shot up. In some ways, it's made Relentless Assault, I don't know, it's just made it worse for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's like you said, it's not made it unplayable, but it's definitely made it less attractive.
Made it a lot more situational than it was before.
Yeah. And I've got a little trick that I've been clued onto with Scout the Enemy. John, is my Eldar list in here in the end? Or
It
did you
is,
not put
yes.
it in? Then I'll go when we get there.
Okay, let's quickly talk about NIDS then. They were the big boogeyman. They've got 3 objectives. They've got Synaptic Insight, which is basically you score victory points for killing things with synapse creatures, but it's capped at 12. Cranial Feasting is basically killing characters. It's like a super assassinate, killing characters with melee attacks, and then you tot them all up at the end and you gain extra bonus victory points.
Does it say what category that's in?
That's Purge the Enemy.
Good, so you can't stack it with assassinate.
No. And Shadow Operations, they've got something called Spore Nodes, which is quite nice. The troops unit does an action. It takes the whole turn, so it doesn't do anything else. That I think it's the end of the movement phase, yeah. End of the movement phase is the end of the turn. You plonk down a marker at the end of the game. You score 4 victory points each time the unit from your army does it. It seems to be able to do it from the second battle round onwards if it is within 6 inches of your points to opponent zone and not within 6 inches of your spore node. So as long as you're careful about where you plonk them and you don't stick them somewhere stupid, you can sort of work your way along and you can score 4 turns of them. So you can score your full 15, but you've got to be a bit careful where you put them because you can't be closer than 6 inches from the last one you put down. If you've got a lot of troops units in your NIDI army, that's quite nice. I don't think you can do it more than once per turn. No, you can't. But it still could be quite nice if you've got a lot of little troops units, so that's not bad.
Okay.
Are there any others we want to talk about? I think it's probably it, isn't it?
Nah, not really.
Right, let's
If
get on
somebody
with
has a question, they can leave a question, right?
Yeah,
of course, yeah.
In the comments or in the Discord or any of that stuff.
And we're happy to talk about them.
Yes, I mean, we could totally... What we've done on the channel over the last couple of years, for anyone that hasn't subscribed yet, is we've done breakdowns of the individual army books. Like getting started videos for those factions. Maybe in the next iteration of those videos we will make, because we will make more as the armies get new books and stuff. Maybe we could spend 5-10 minutes doing individual secondaries as well. Because I don't know if we do that. Typically,
we have done. We've talked over some of the objections, yeah.
Yeah, we don't go into exhaustive depth, but we've definitely talked on them.
Okay, cool. So we'll continue to do that.
So yeah, if you look at some of it, but they're a bit out of date now, those secondaries, because of course they're all changed.
Yeah, so if you've got a question on a specific secondary, leave it, and if not, we'll cover them when we cover the new books as well.
Indeed.
Yep. Okay, so today's FAQ, John. So this will be last week's FAQ for everybody watching.
Yep, which was stealth. GW did not announce the fact that this FAQ existed. People just noticed it and went, this is new.
I think they're somewhat embarrassed about some of this.
Wow, tough. So the bit on the right there affects Dark Eldar and fixes one of their special detachment types that they had, which is fine and dandy.
Yeah, they're real space raid.
Yep.
Because that broke with the...
Yep. And then you've got Supreme Commanders, which also broke with the Arks of Omen detachment and has now been fixed. Oh, and there's the page 1 introduction, which says initially the first page of chapter proved says you start with 4 CP, not 6, and that is wrong. So obviously they've corrected it.
Picard facepalm meme.
Yeah. Clearly, again, they wrote it and forgot to change it afterwards once they changed their mind.
Something came up in the Discord today. I think it was Mark that said it. Might have been Tony. I'm forgetting. The last bullet point on column A. You can include an Adeptus Astartes Primarch unit in chapter detachments, even does not include chapter keywords. Yep. Doing so does not prevent you from gaining your detachment rules. So, i.e., we can include Gilliman with a Blood Angel's army. We do not lose super doctrines. We do not lose doctrines. We don't lose anything. Detachment abilities. Great. So for the first time, we can do that. Because you could take him before, but you lost your super doctrine, so now you can keep that. Why didn't they write Gilliman when they called out other people's names specifically?
That is indeed the tinfoil hat thing that has got the internet going, oh my god, why didn't they just write Gilliman? Because they wrote Abaddon in the paragraph above that, and oh my god, this clearly means we're getting another Primarch.
They did write Belarius Call in the paragraph above that, and they did write the Silent King above that, so...
I mean... we've been waiting for another Loyalist Primarch for years because it's always been on the cards. People like big shiny models, and the lion has been lying in the rock. Just
the hints from the tarot have been pretty blatant that it's going to be a whole Dark Angel thing coming. So
I mean, we've been saying for years that the lion's waking up or should wake up soon, or because there was that whole thing with Luther.
I wish it wasn't.
When he escaped.
Boring. I want to make my fans with this, and there's some people in Discord who watch this stuff who are like massive Dark Angel fanboys. But come on, he's dull.
He's not my favourite Primarch. He's a bit of an arsehole, really, as well. And like that whole Caliban thing and split, that was entirely his fault.
I'm the lion, grumpy. Yeah, stop.
I'm going to exile half of my own chapter because I don't like that guy. That guy's pissed me off. So all of you thousands of all of you can go fuck yourselves because that guy's a dick.
If you thought we just took the piss out of Gabriel Seth for being a bit of a weird person,
he's just such a spoil ass.
Do it with Lionel Johnson as well, quite happily. Which Primarch would you like it to be, Tony?
Oh, that's a more interesting one.
And John, but I was going to ask Tony first because I thought you'd give me an answer straight away.
The Khan.
All right. Yeah.
I'll tell you why. Because he was always the most rational of all of the Primarchs. He made he sided with the Emperor because he made a rational decision that actually that's where I want to stand. Mm-hmm. And everyone was a bit, where's he going to fall? Which will mean now, coming back in this time of Gilliman's doing what he's doing and undone a lot of his own changes.
Yeah.
You've got the Imperium split in half. You've got all this shit going on. Having someone coldly rational come back might be a really interesting twist. Because he's not just going to be going out there and going, rah, kills the chaos. So I just think that'll be an interesting one to come back and could do fun things with the lore and the story.
He's proactive, he travels,
he's
got...
Whereas,
I can see that.
Like Dawn or the Lion or something like that, it's all very, no, the Emperor's bestest boy and kill all the others. And the Russ is just an arsehole. Like, huge parts of the Horus Heresy can be directly attributed to Russ being an arsehole.
Fair enough. John?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I don't care so much about the lore. I just want Blood Angels to get a centerpiece model that is strong and powerful and is not a Primaris character. So give me a Sanguinor mixed with something from the warp, because apparently Sanguinius lives within the warp. So I just want a centerpiece. So excellent. I'm not so fussed about them.
So your answer is you abstain?
Pretty much.
Right.
Couldn't give a shit. I
haven't read any books that mention Primarch. Oh, I read the first book in Siege of Terra, which had Khan in it, to be fair, and it had Sanguinius.
Yeah.
I found that first book an absolute slog. There was a lot of warpy bits going on in that book, and it was very difficult for me. So sometimes, I recently finished the Astaroth book. I actually finished it now. Really enjoyed it, actually. I really want to talk about that, actually. We'll do another video where we talk about Astaroth. It's full of spoilers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fair enough. Mark, you haven't answered the question yet.
Yeah, I would have to say Korax, because literally nothing has been said about him at all. About where he's gone and what he's been doing.
He's haunting Lorgar.
There's so many stories and rumours about where he's been, or what he could be doing, or what state he's in, or whether he's still even human at this point. And I think it could be really interesting to bring him back and potentially do something.
There's a lot of interesting things there, isn't there?
But in a driving the story and the plot and the personality forward point of view, I think you're probably right. The Khan's probably the best one for that.
I just think he's going to have the most impetus to move the story rather than just smash his head against some chaoses.
Yeah. I think Russ would be an obvious choice, and like you said, would be a fairly dull choice.
Well, where is it? Russ has run off into the warp, and he's hanging out in the warp with his bestest bud Valdor.
We thought he was coming back when all the Wolfen came out, and then he just never materialised.
Back, isn't he? Because we've seen that whole King in Yellow Valdor turned up, and as he was with Russ in the warp, trying to solve the Emperor being a sleepy boy, then it's back.
But it is pretty clear it's going to be the line.
Yeah. And none of us have mentioned Vulcan because he's that boring.
God, Vulcan. I mean, his whole thing is he can't die. He's a supposedly like good humanitarian.
He's just a nice guy,
friendly chap, yeah. You can't die, and that's about it, really.
How many Demon Primarchs did we get this edition?
We've got 2.
Mortarion and
We're
Angron,
getting
yeah?
the 3rd.
No. Who's the 3rd then?
We've got Mortarion and Magnus the Red. And we're
I said this edition. I think Magnus was last edition.
Oh, edition. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. So was Mortarion.
Was he 8th as well, was he?
Yeah, he was the big thing for the start of 8th.
Oh, fuck me. Oh, yeah, because it was the Death Guard box in 8th, wasn't it? Okay, so we only had 1 this edition then. Okay, you just said Angron.
Well, we've not had any yet this edition. We've got Angron coming.
Yeah. And then, so what's the... What was that new Bloodthirster, the one that turns off all the rerolls? What's his name again?
New Bloodthirster? You mean Angron?
No, not Angron. There was one came out about a year ago. A big Chaos.
Scarbrand?
Nope.
That was a Horus Heresy
a year ago.
Do you mean Be'lakor?
Yeah, Be'lakor.
Okay.
He's not
Bloodthirster, but no, he's Chaos Undivided.
He's kind of like Fashtories. He's kind of like a demon in his own right, doing his own thing.
Yeah. He's another unaligned Chaos minor god.
Okay, all right. Hard to keep up with them. I just kill them.
Anyway, we kind of diverged.
Roll 6s.
So yeah, probably get another Primarch. Probably going to be Lion. Shane.
Might be a cool model though. I do think that the sculpt of the Lion from Horus Heresy might be one of the best. It's a beautiful model.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the best.
I don't know if I'd say he's the best, but he's certainly one of.
The sculpts from Horus Heresy to 40k are quite different, though, right?
Jagatai Khan was one of the brilliant. Was if not possibly.
Well, he was the last one that came out, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's fair.
And the one before was the Lion, so it kind of makes sense that a couple of the better ones are the last couple that come out.
Because Angron looks really bad these days.
Oh yeah. So does Lorgar.
It's true. Well, Lorgar's just a pissant anyway.
Who cares about Lorgar?
Do we have anything more we want to talk about on this page?
I was going to say, we've
just spent a quarter of an hour talking bollocks about nothing to do with this page. This come out is a bit foreshadowy and full of mistakes.
And have you guys finished painting your Sanguinius yet?
No. I've made a lot of progress on him, but he's not finished. No.
No.
Have you?
No.
John?
Okay. I haven't bought Sanguinius. I'll buy them when I can put them on the table.
Disappointing.
I will. I'll buy them when I can put them on the table. Very disappointing. I mean, I'm more likely to buy Rabute now because I can field them in my army.
I'd do the thing I was planning to do previously when I was thinking about it, which is have Rabute Guilliman's rules and just use Sanguinius model just to sit there in his place.
You could do that as well. That would be modelling for disadvantage because Sanguinius is quite tall and has long wings.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Me, who wants to win an event, cares.
All right,
I guess.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's roll on because we're taking too long. John, you've got a Black Templar list. Why have you got a Black Templar list? Aren't you the Blood Angels commander?
I am, but Black Templars are almost as broken as Iron Hands, I feel like. Iron Hands are very broken at the moment. Arks of Omen.
Who could have possibly predicted, given the fact they were broken as fuck the last time GW did this to them?
I think it's even more broken now because you can't hide from them now because they can put half their army in strategic reserve for no CP. So unless you can screen the board without being on the board,
you can hide from them. I've told you, and I'll tell you again how you can hide from them. This is how you can hide from them.
Yeah, well, I mean, they'll blow it up in a single turn, though. Then you won't be hiding.
And they'll blow that up in a single turn. Then they'll have shot that.
With one tank, will take that out, Mark. You won't get a saving throw on it.
So they can do 12 wounds, toughness 8, just that easily.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, there's new Valiant tanks.
Okay. Go for a bigger one with 18 wounds, or 20 wounds, or 30 wounds.
It's scary how much damage they can do now.
Put it under a void shield generator to get a 5 up invulnerable save as well.
That's going to be key, and that's what I was advocating today in the Blood Angels Discord. I think if you want to go far in this edition, if you want to win an event, you're going to need invulnerable saves. You're just going to need invulnerable saves. You can't, because I played Iron Hands last night, and 80% of the time I wasn't even allowed to roll a saving throw. It's that bad. And that's models in cover, right? Like it's like you have Death Company in cover, no, you don't get a save. You have Marines in cover, no, you don't get a save. It's pretty depressing. So my Blood Angels list at the moment runs about 3 invulnerable saves.
Okay.
yeah, it's Blade Guard, Impulsor, Contemptor, Dreadnought. That was it. I mean, the characters have, but like a 4-wound character's not going to survive a 8 multi-melta shots ever, right?
Would you pay 200 points for a 12-inch bubble, as in radius, of 5-up invulnerable save?
Well, I mean, you're paying 120 points for a librarian that can do that, maybe 125. So that doesn't seem too
the aura
bad.
goes down as it takes damage, but yeah, it starts at 12-inch radius. That's pretty tasty.
What unit is that? Sorry,
it's called the Void Shield Generator.
Is that the big platform?
Yeah, it's fortification.
And has it got toughness and wounds as well? Has it?
It's got toughness of 8, 16 wounds, 4-up save. Obviously, it'll have its own 5-up invulnerable save.
Mm. Yeah, I think Andrew actually owns one. He used to play Tau and put it on top of it, all the flying tanks and shit. Yeah, so I think over the next few weeks, I'm probably going to run Blood Angel. I'm probably going to go back to the Librarian to give the Blood Angels an invulnerable save. But I did throw together a Black Templars list to just, if you want to jump into it, it's just because Black Templars get mini transhuman across the whole army. They get the 5-up invulnerable save against the whole army. They get 5-up against mortals across the whole army. So this is what you can do in Arks of Omen now, in that like you could take 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts, you could put all of them into reserve, so none of them are any risk. You bring them all in from the side of the table, you shoot them all, and then you make a bunch of charges. Black Templars are no mugs in melee, and obviously the Redemptors get so much value in that, like, well, they can never be wounded on anything less than a 3, and they have the 5-up invulnerable save, and that's kind of the biggest weakness of a Redemptor, I guess, is no invulnerable save, right? Everything else I've gone for Storm Shields. Aggressors, I think, get a lot of value of Black Templars again, invulnerable saves. I've taken Heavy Intercessors and Infiltrators, give them invulnerable saves as well, and you can do what I was talking about earlier with the stickying the troop objectives. Put a Tech Marine to heal some of them, because why would you not want to heal them? And then the Blade Guard and the Ingressors will be in tanks if we go into the second page. And your tanks in this list will also have that invulnerable saves, and they get free multi-meltas on them. Even an Impulsor gets the free invulnerable save, the multi-melta. So Impulsors are actually, like, again, I think Impulsors are good now for Space Marines. Some people don't. Some people are still not on board of Impulsors are being good. Again, in my event, my game against the Space Wolves, Impulsor won me the game. The Space Wolf player wanted to charge by Blade Guard with his Wolf Cavalry. They were all sat in an Impulsor. So he shot his whole army at the Impulsor. I spiked the invulnerable saves, and it ended on like 7 wounds after turn 1. He still really wanted to kill the Impulsor in turn 2. He shot just about everything at it as well. Space Marines also... Bjorn, you know the Space Wolf character?
Yeah.
He, like I said to my opponent, I felt really bad. He fired Bjorn at the Impulsor twice. He finally got through the hit, the wound, the save. He finally did it, and he goes, all right, I'm going to roll my damage. He rolls a fucking 1. Of course he does. And he's already CP'd a roll that turn or something. You know, I think he CP'd the number of shots from his Redemptor's Plasma Cannon or something. And I was like, oh, you can't CP the damage roll. And I said to him, I was like, man, Space Marines need las cannons to be D3 plus 3. They're terrible at D6 damage in a tournament. You know, like, so he shot Bjorn, who hits on 2s, who's got better las cannons than most. He shot him for 2 turns at an Impulsor and did 1 damage. It's like, well, Bjorn costs 150 points, so maybe not quite 150, but, you know, in that range. So basically, my Impulsor was MVP against Space Wolf. So I think with Arks of Omen, I don't know how people keep saying to me, like, don't worry about Iron Hands, the meta is going to adjust. Well, the meta is going to adjust, sure, but if high AP stuff is just going to make it that Marine armies that don't have invulnerable saves are, like, irrelevant, then the meta will adjust to make those armies
I've got
relevant.
a better answer. Don't worry about Iron Hands, they'll get nerfed to fucking 3 months. With the next balance updates, like...
I thought they only change points every 3 months.
No, they only change points every 6 months. The balance slate is every 3 months.
Okay. So you think Iron Hands will have 3 months of crazy strong?
Yeah, pretty much. If they don't get nerfed beforehand due to winning horribly at the LVO and Adepticon.
Cool. Well, I think Black Templars are going to be right up there. I think they are a very durable army now with lots of power.
Important question.
Yes.
Why the fuck have you got a repulsor?
Because it's got an invulnerable save, it's got a free multi-melta, all the weapon options are free. That repulsor used to be about 350 points. It's now 220.
I've got a better answer, because he's had it for years and he really wants to use it.
I think it's probably that. Because at 220 points, you could also have, not far off 2 Gladiator Lancers.
I was thinking the reason the Impulsor are there actually is because I was going to have 3 Aggressors inside it and Grimaldus and his 3 little Entrepay. Whatever they're called. I don't even know. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes, his entourage.
His entourage of
So you're going to run it as you're going to run it as basically a Land Raider. Just fill it up with big
Primaris Land Raider
and drive it forwards.
Yeah, and all the Primaris vehicles in Black Templars get free multi-melt on them, which seems crazy, but sure, why not? That's just an extra rule that they get. I guess it's like Blood Angels get free Infernal Pistols, they get free multi-melts. So yeah, I was going to say, I'll be building
But you
Blood
don't have
Angels.
to do it now because you've won a tournament, so you can walk back your whole I'm going to play Black Templars thing and just stick with Blood Angels again.
Yeah, it's going to be a really difficult decision for me, Mark, because I don't... After playing last night, if there's an army like that at the event, I don't think Blood Angels can beat them in the current iteration. I really don't. I know people just say take more invulnerable saves or something, but at the same time I don't have $500 and I don't have the time to repaint an entire army in a month and a half.
That is the thing, isn't it? Yeah. By the time you've got it prepped to build an army that will beat the broken bullshit's been nerfed and the meta's moved on.
So I'm going to spend a month.
We've all said that from the beginning. Before somebody gets funny, don't build an army for the current meta. Because unless you're one of these people that's going to pay somebody else to do it, or you're going to dip them in 3 colours and call it a day, by the time you've built it, bought it, painted it, the meta will have shifted, the broken bullshit will have changed, and your stuff will be useless. Like that repulsor, don't go and buy one. John reckons they're all right now, but they'll be back to shit before you finish.
That's also because you already owned one.
Yeah,
I've had that Blood Angels one half painted for just 3 years at this point. But
buy what you think is cool.
Yeah, someone in our Discord today was actually really upset, saying that they were going to quit competitive play, right? Because they felt like Blood Angels were in a tough spot. And I was trying to say to him, it all goes up. I had my aggressors for 3 years at this point sitting on a shelf. No one's ever used aggressors. Now it's aggressors are back for a season, or
look at this one tournament win under his belt and suddenly he can be all philosophical about it.
Well, I never try and get down for finishing a unit. I've never run those Hellblasters. They've been painted for 2 years. We were talking the other day, maybe Hellblasters and Impulsor could actually be a plan now. So I always think there's value in painting a squad to completion, feel good about it, and if they're not competitive right now, they will be at some point.
Yeah, exactly. It gives you flexibility for the meta and when it shifts.
I've got a display cabinet full of all sorts of random crap. I ran a Bold Predator the other day because with the drops, there's 110 points. I thought, well, I've got 110 points spare on my list. Fuck it, I'll chuck it in and see how it does. And it did all right. It did all right.
I think I'm going to run 2 Bold Predators the next month.
Yeah,
just because they're 110 points. I might even run
so cheap.
What's the Predator that's got the 2 las cannons on the top and 2 at the side?
Annihilator.
The Annihilator. I might even run some Annihilators from reserve. Just because they're free to reserve. It's 4 las cannon shots. It's not great, but if I'm running Rebute, it'll be hitting on 3s, re-rolling 1s. Pretty reliable, right? Yeah, why not? Why not? Have fun. I think this season you're going to have fun, because if you take it too fucking seriously, you're going to quit. Which
I think is the point of it. If
this is one last hurrah,
it's going to be the end of
the
edition, then
yes,
it's fucking go nuts.
Yeah, exactly. So try and have fun with it. That's my 2 cents. So that's my Black Templars list.
Here's a left-wing thought that's just popped into my head.
Go for it.
We talked earlier about how there's still a couple of supplements that haven't got their books yet.
Yeah.
We talked a couple of episodes ago how I said that the art for the Battle Force boxes for the Space Marine chapters was totally different to the art to the other Battle Forces and the style.
Yep.
And then after Christmas, we've had new releases of Battle Forces for the chapters that haven't had their supplements yet.
Yep.
Could they be getting some rules in these next few books that are coming out?
They said they weren't going to put main rules in those Arks of Omen's books.
Over this kind of period, we could see for example,
they've got to put rules in
hands.
something because they've got to put rules for Azrael somewhere.
Yeah. So, will we see like an Iron Hands mini supplement or something, which might fix some of the broken bullshit? We don't know.
I hope and I think I expect at this point the next Codex Space Marines to contain those basic chapters in it in the same way the Codex Chaos Space Marines contains all the basic legions inside it.
Did the new Codex Chaos Space Marines, because I never got it, did it have rules for individual characters for the various...
the ones that haven't got their own books, yes.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Then maybe
so
we're going to
everything but Thousand Suns, World Eaters, and the ugly vomit ones whose name temporarily escapes me. Death Guard.
Maybe we're going to get like a Encyclopedia Britannia size Codex Space Marines that's going to have lots of stuff.
Entirely
I mean, there's been so many rumors of Space Marine stuff coming, so Brutalis Dreadnoughts.
Maybe they'll cut the 8 pages of stratagems down to 2 pages of stratagems to make room for it.
If all the stratagems went away tomorrow, I would be a happy man.
They did a poll on
They did.
Yeah.
Most people, it was like more people like stratagems and dislike them, I'm afraid, Tony.
Yeah, I know.
People said that a lot of people were in the middle bracket where they like some stratagems, but they don't like a million stratagems. So that probably means we're going to stay on the lower number of CP.
I like that they've got just a couple of strats in boarding action. I know we're not talking about that today, but they've sort of said just we fuck those off for a bit. It makes it a bit easier to work with.
Okay,
that does. Roll on.
We're rolling on to you next.
Tony's gigantic Terminator daddies. That's not the name that you said to call him.
That's what he wrote.
Okay, so here is my current custodies list. And I've mentioned this earlier, but actually this is cut down from the old version of this list, which is what I had when the book first came out. In that I've only got 6 elite slots to play with, so I can't be quite as ridiculous as I was. I had to chuck a couple of other bits in there just to make it up. Basically, I had to drop a unit of Terminators and replace it with the Grav tank. Now,
okay,
this is not a good list, and I want to get this out right away. Going back, this is John's list. He thinks this can win some games.
Yeah.
This is my list. I don't think it can win some games, but I do think that you'd have a lot of fun playing it. And I've kind of themed this list around gigantic Terminator daddies. They're all gold, they're all shiny, and they're all beefy as all fuck. You're not going to find any jet bikes in this list. And the core of this list is a shield captain in Alarus Terminator armor. That's it. No Trajan Valoris. I've just got the 1 HQ choice. It's a custodian in Terminator armor with an axe.
Mm-hmm.
Axes have had a bit of a benefit from Armor of Contempt going away, which means that they're not. Now AP2 is marginally more relevant than it was before. So he's got an axe. He's got the Praetorian plate, that means he can teleport about. He's got Superior Creation, which gives him a 5-up Feel No Pain. And he's got the Commander upgrade, Bane of Abominations, which he gets rerolls against characters and monsters in melee. So he can teleport around, reroll characters and monsters. He's punching you at strength 8. And I've just put that in there because he's fun. I've gone with Emperor's Chosen. I should have mentioned that earlier. And that's because it means you can sub in other shield hosts for a turn on the unit, which is great. And it gives them all a 4-up invuln against mortals because custodies hate mortal wounds because they've otherwise got very little defenses against them, which means like 1,000 Suns and that can really mess them up. And then we go to the meat of the thing. The big choice that I've picked is my elites. And that is 3 units of 3 Alarus Custodian Terminators. All with axes, because axes are cooler.
Mm-hmm.
And they all got OBSEC back, right?
They've all got OBSEC back. You can play the strat and split them into units of 1 if you really want to. And
axes
you just
are not cooler. Axes are not cooler. Sorry, please carry on.
But yeah, so you've just got 3 units. They can all deep strike. They can teleport around. They've all got OBSEC. They're all pretty tough. They're not as tough, and this is what people seem to get confused by, Allarus Terminators are not as tough point for point as your basic troops units. They just hit slightly harder in melee, maybe ever so slightly, but really they're pretty much on a par. The actual benefit you get by bringing Terminators is you get slightly better guns. Terminators are better at shooting than the standard troops, and that's the difference really there. So I've got 3 units of 3. That gives me the core of my army. That's what's going to hold objectives and move about. Then I've got a Contemptor Achilles. That's to do with the spear. I've upgraded him with the Adrathic Destructor, which is the AP -3 Strength 5 weapon, which is quite nice. 3 damage one. I've got that because I had some points to spare, to be honest.
All right.
I've got a Contemptor Galatus with Eternal Penitent for the reroll charges and the extra attack. Then fast attack, I've got a little Pallas Gravitat because like little land speeder, they're not very good, but fuck it. Because there's too much Forge World in this list, and Forge World has just never been that good. Not for this edition. I've got 2 Telemon Heavy Dreadnoughts. They're toughness 8. They've got 4 up in Vun, and they've got -1 damage.
And a 6 up Feel No Pain, right?
And the 6 up Feel No Pain. And the 4 up against Mortal Wounds. They're just
cool.
Big old lumps. They just sit. They're 275 points. They fucking should be. And a Calidus Grav Tank with the Twin Arachnos Heavy Blaze Cannon, which is the Annihilator variant. It's got the anti-tank gun on it because this is a list that really suffers against armor. Last, we've got an elite character, which is the Praetor and Allarus Terminator armor. That's to give all of my guys +1, so they're all in cover, which just means that everybody's on 1 up armor save.
Nice.
And then that's it. That's all I've got. I think that's what, Aaron, is. How many models is this? 1, that's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 models in my army.
Nice.
Even Henry Cavill could have time to paint that 17, couldn't he?
17 models. And I've still got 5 spare points. I just can't think of anything to spend it on. The Adrathic Destructor was because I had 15 points I couldn't find a home for.
Fair enough.
So that was it. Just big old beefy guys to teleport around and try not to die.
So do you feel liberated using the Arks of Omen detachment rules here?
Yeah, I love it. Before, I was really salty a few months ago when they did the CP change. Because a variant of this list, basically without the Calidus and with another unit of Terminators in it, more or less, was what I was running, and that was a double Vanguard. But because of the changes to CP, double Vanguard meant I couldn't have any Warlord traits or relics because that was all of my CP used up.
Yeah.
So it basically couldn't be played anymore. Arks of Omen coming out means that my silly beefy boys list can come back out, admittedly not quite in the state it was. I've had to put an tank in there that I didn't have before. So it's more or less the same, but now I come in, I've spent 3 CP, I'm starting with 3 CP so I can do some stuff. And yeah, I think this will be a fun list to play with. Depending on who you're playing as, maybe not a fun list to play against.
Fair enough.
As I spike on 4 up invuns and then you do fuck all, which is always funny, but can lead to some feel bad moments when people put their whole army into something and just refuses to do anything.
Are you talking from experience there by any chance?
I did play someone not all that long ago, and I finished the game with the same number of models that I started the game with, and I tabled my opponent, and all that happened was I just spiked really hard on invuns.
Was that Carter or was that somebody else?
It was somebody else. You have met him, though. That was Pewty.
Oh yeah.
And I just spiked really hard on invuns. He did a smattering of wounds across the army, but killed nothing. I slowly punched them all to death. Yeah. It does. That's the problem with 4 up invuns. You either fail them all and then everything dies and expensive units get lost, or you pass them all and your opponent just gets more and more wound up.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Is what it is. That's what I'm going to be running in Arks of Omen. Well, for Custodes anyway. My Blood Angels are a bit different. They're a bit more normal. Let's look at Mark's list.
All right. Death from above.
Actually, before we do that, can I just ask a question? You name every one of your lists Mortem Etheria, right? Does that not make filing really difficult? Because if you're like, I need my list from last week. Oh, fuck it. What was it called? Oh, Mortem Etheria. So is it Mortem Etheria 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Was it 11 or 15 that I needed?
Because I date them and add notes as well. in the file names. It's more of a concept of the identity of the army than an army name more than anything else. So this is a Blood Angels army. It might do really badly. It might do really well. I don't know if I can clear. I'll play it and have a laugh. It should be funny at least. So you've got what's the core of the list here? The core of the list is the infiltrator squads are there to score stuff. They're there to do retrieve battlefield data and then guerrilla tactics off somewhere else, and then come on somewhere else and retrieve battlefield data somewhere else on the field. The Blade Guard veterans will foot slog up the middle in the company of the sanguinary priest and the captain on the bike. The priest and the bike are also there to deliver their buffs to the death company, who will jump forward and smack something turn 1 using this patented, cheaper variant, which is hardly patented because everybody's going to be running this shit at the moment, of a cheaper version than running it all with Thunder Hammers, because I needed some points. So I sacked off the Thunder Hammers, gave them all Inferno Pistols and Axes instead, so the Inferno Pistols can shoot some stuff and take some of the heavy damage lifting, and then finish them off with the Axes on the charge, which I thought was...
Is that because Axes are better than swords? Because I know you've given everything an axe, no swords inside.
Yes, axes are indeed the more meta choice currently. I must agree with that.
Can I ask a really cool question?
You can ask.
Mm-hmm.
You've gone for a captain on a bike at last. You've given up on Commander Dante.
Yeah.
You traitor.
Do you know why?
Because they fucking didn't put his points down for no fucking reason. Yeah. Tell me why.
His initial build was actually a captain jump pack.
Okay.
With a sword that was going to be a relic blade and storm shield and chapter master and keeping bare bones and cheap and going forward. That was 145 points. I figured I could save 10 points by putting him on a bike.
Make him more survivable as well.
Exactly, and he'll still fulfill exactly what I want him to. And then I came to the end of the list. I'd got a bunch of CP left over that I didn't really massively need to begin the game with. So I thought I'd kit him out and make him resilient as hell, because that seems to work quite well for some people whom I won't name.
It does work really well, actually, yeah.
And obviously making a resilient as hell captain on bike is a very good tool for Angel Sacrifice. So yeah, sure, why not? Let's do that. I thought that'd be a cool one. It'd also drive around next to the Inceptor squad and shoot stuff punchily, because Inceptors with Plasma Exterminators are really powerful these days, having dropped down to 200 points, which is great. And the Whirlwind is a no-brainer. Still, it's going to sit there, it's going to shoot stuff, it's going to suppress stuff, which brings me to the core of the list.
Hold on, you missed big... You get a free Hunter Killer Missile on that Whirlwind.
Oh, yeah, no, the Hunter Killer's still 5 points. You get a free Storm Bolter.
Oh shit, I cheated against Iron Hands. Are you sure?
That's what Battlescribe said. If that's
Battlescribe...
incorrect, then Battlescribe got it wrong, which is possible.
Okay. I took the Hunter Killer to the tournament. I actually never fired it at the tournament because I forgot that I had it, because it's not modelled on. Yeah. But I'm sure it's free, because they wouldn't have the tournament list would have gotten rejected if it wasn't free.
Fair enough. So that leaves everything else I've not touched on, which is the remaining 5 units, which is approximately half the army. So that is 2 units of 5 Sangard, a Sanguinary Ancient, and 2 Storm Ravens with a lot of guns. All of which are going to start off the board because the 2 aircraft have to. The Sangard and Ancient in one of them, and the remaining Sangard in the other. It was going to be 5 Sangard plus the Ancient and 6 Sangard in the other one, but I had to drop 30 points to fit all the stuff I wanted in the list. I did think about dropping the Infiltrators down to... What the fuck's the other one called?
Incursors,
because they're 90 points rather than 100. But then the 20 points didn't make enough of a difference, so I bumped them back up to Infiltrators again, and they're just going to be more utilitarian and useful with the Denial Bubble and resilient with the Helix Gauntlet. And the idea is this. On turn 2, the Storm Ravens appear wherever the fuck on the board I want them to, provided they're away from 9 inches of an enemy model, which is fine. They unload at something, both of them shoot at something, or they focus fire and do a whole load of damage to some poor sod, because you're taking 500 points worth of fairly substantial firepower at this point. I'm quite happy to drop them both 24 inches away from the target, to be honest. I won't be in range of the melter for the multi-melter on the nose, But they'll still do decent damage with the plasma cannon, the multi-melter, and the storm strike missile launchers. Hurricane bolters could do a little bit of fire.
Just wish that you had a dreadnought in one of those storm
I
ravens.
wanted to. I really wanted to, but I ran afoul of amounts of points that I could start off the board.
Okay.
Because I was so close to 1,000 points with 2 Storm Ravens, the Guard, and the Ancient.
That is the problem with my Thunderhawk at the moment. If I don't think I can field it with anything in it.
Yeah. Otherwise, I would have put Dreadnoughts in there as well. And then, here's the interesting part. You've got 11 Sangard coming out of the Storm Ravens turn 3. 11 Inferno Pistols, which can disembark 3 inches, move 12, plus another 2 because of the Wrath of Baal on there. So they can move 17 inches out of the Storm Raven on turn 3.
So half-range Infernal Pistols.
Oh, yeah. On basically whatever I want. Nuke something else and then charge again. And then you got Rights of War on the Ancient for whatever they've charged into and hit. I think it's got potential.
It does have potential. I just really wish I had a Dreadnought.
Stacking the Wrath of Baal into the Sangard, who can benefit from it after they disembark from the Storm Ravens, is an interesting little synergy that I hadn't come across before.
Yeah, I thought people would have taken Icon and Angel for similar, reroll charges. But yeah, if you're moving 17 out, then you don't have 2.
It buffs the +2 essentially into the charge range, but also into the getting you a lot closer for getting you into half range for the Inferno Pistols, or even within 6-inch range for the 11th Inferno Pistols, which will be hitting on 2s because the Sanguinary Ancient is the Warlord. Therefore, he buffs all the Sangard around him with +1 to hit.
There's a giant change to the game that you have to think about with Arks of Omen, and that is that 1,000 points of everybody's army can be in reserve. And if you're not putting 1,000 points in reserve, then you're probably just opening yourself up to being out of position to be counter-strike by shooting of 1,000 points.
I don't know that I agree with that, to be honest, because if you're well screening and things like that, the whole of your backfield, say you've gone with a more of a gun-liney army, something like Guard or something, then by you having 2,000 points on and them having 1,000 points on, then you might, depending on your list, be giving yourself a massive alpha strike advantage.
Plus, if everybody starts reserving off half their army, then whoever wins the first turn roll-off places their reserves in their turn 2, before the person who goes second. So the person who goes second will have the chance to shoot the entirety of their opponent's army, whereas the person who goes first will only have the opportunity to shoot half of their opponent's army, the half that's on the board.
Yeah, there will be some play around that, I guess. You'll be a case of some stuff will stay to turn 3. Yeah, it's a tough one, but I do think this is going to be a giant shift in terms of like Storm 16 power level Storm Raven gunships off the board for 0 CP, whereas before it would have used all your CP to do that.
It would have cost 4 or 5 CP, yeah, at least.
Yeah. Well, more because it would have been 16 plus.
Yeah, plus Sangard. Yeah, you're right. They'd have gone in as well. Yeah, I've got no idea how well it'll win. I think it'll be fun to play.
It'll be cool on the build as well, which I think is.
Yeah.
People don't give enough credit to things
won't be able to cope
cool
with it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some builds that you'll just fight it, I'm sure, quite easily.
Cool.
So, yeah, that's my plan. What do you think?
Know how you get on.
It's nothing you'd ever come up with or run, I think, John.
I think I am going to try a build with a Storm Raven on, though.
Yeah?
But I'm going to have the Dreadnought in. I'm going to have the Dreadnought, I'm going to have Terminators, and I'm going to have a character that gives me reroll charges.
If you've only got one, it will get focus fired down the turn it arrives.
Yeah, I figure that. I'll place it 9 inches away so I get that extra.
So it'll get to shoot once, yeah.
The extra you'll want to focus something that doesn't have an invulnerable save and get it within half range to get the strength out of those multi-malice.
Yeah. And don't forget the Storm Ravens will be -1 to be shot at, which won't save it, but it'll help.
I was going to say, I think it'll be focused down unless the Terminators and the Dreadnought and the character all make their charges, and maybe
they can't get out and charge, can they?
No, you can't.
No, they can't. They can't get out and charge.
Not on the turn you arrive.
It doesn't arrive. Ugh. Okay.
But because disembarking would happen after they've moved, because it always counts as moving on the turn it arrives.
So if you filled it all up with stuff and it got blown up, then it'd be like the world's shittest pinata for anybody underneath it, because it would be raining Terminators and Dreadnoughts.
Another reason why I'm happy doing it with this one and with their increased threat range on the Sandguard of 17-inch move before they do anything is I can position these at really, really far away from stuff rather than having to need to be close. So I can position them so that if you shoot them down and blow them up, whatever's inside can just fall out into a building or behind some line of sight blocker.
Because that was always the problem with swinging things like, because I know I love a Death Company Dreadnought, and I especially love an Ironclad Dreadnought. But the problem is, if you swing it underneath the Storm Raven, which looks amazing in the old version, this is, if it got blown up turn 1, then your Death Company Dreadnought or your Ironclad is waddling along at 6 inches a turn, and he could be miles from anything useful. With this one, the most he's going to be away is 9 inches. If they blow him up, he's going to charge next turn, unless they can kill him as well.
If they can be 6 inches away, because when you disembark from being blown up, you disembark wholly within 3 inches of it, so you can get 3 inches
hanging
closer.
Ironclads with toughness 8 off the back of a Storm Raven for 135 points.
What if you had the Terminators and Deep Strikes? The Terminators come down next to it. Your cheap ass chaplain jumps out, or your cheap ass character with the Icon and Angel jumps out, because he disembark but not charge. Is that right?
No, you can't disembark.
You just can't even
cannot
disembark
the turn it arrives. Unless the unit says you can disembark the turn it arrives in the way a drop pod says it.
Okay, new plan.
You can't do it.
Gilliman is 12 inches away from the Storm Raven. The Terminators come down next to the Storm Raven, make their charge with the +2 because they're 12 inches from Gilliman.
All right.
Yeah. And the Gilliman could then give the Storm Raven rerolls.
Yeah, rerolls to 1 as well. Yeah, actually. It's going to be like something janky, but honestly, this next 6 months is going to be janky.
Something that Candice Has No Chill suggested in Discord as well earlier, I've mentioned her name a couple of times now, was run a Libby with Psychic Fortress in there as well, to just give the Storm Ravens a 5-up.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you could do that. Or you can even have
the Librarian would have to start on the board to cast it and move to where you're going to place them, but that's fine.
Yeah. That's what my loose plan is for the Thunderhawk, actually, is to bring the Thunderhawk on into a bubble of Fortress and next to a Tech Marine that can give it +1 to shoot.
I'm not sure what I'd drop from here to put the Librarian in, to be honest. If I was going to drop anything,
think you need it.
If I was going to drop anything, it'd be the Whirlwind.
Yeah, I don't think you need it, because you've got, like you were saying earlier, they can't focus because they've got 2 Storm Ravens. And while Storm Ravens are vulnerable, they're not that vulnerable, and you've got 2 of them.
Yeah.
I think I might drop the Whirlwind for that Dreadnought, though.
You still run up against the problem of how many points am I putting in strategic reserve at the start of the battle? Is it more than 1,000? Yes.
Is it more than 1,000?
260 plus 260 plus 300 plus 110 is 520, 820.
It's not quite
930. Oh, it's 930. So I've only got 70 points spare left to put something in reserve.
Yeah.
Which is not enough to buy.
Okay, here's my other alternative then. Leave the Sanguinary Ancient on the board and get him to go up in cover where you want them to come down and give his buffs.
It could work as well, I suppose.
Maybe.
So he's standing there with his banner, and they're like, dude, why are you standing there in this field with a banner? He's like, wait for it. Wait for it.
Maybe. I'll think about
it. He's like the Top Gun. He's waving the banner, calling in their support.
I'll give this a try as it is first, but I'll think about it.
All right, cool. We've got another list from you next.
You do. This is Death from Nowhere. This is not a competitive Eldar list. I'm not a competitive Eldar player yet. I'm hoping to be there, but this is just based off what I've got, what I know, and how it could fit into Arks of Omen these days. So this is an Ulthway list. You've got Eldred Ulthrin in there, who is Psyker par excellence. You've got Farseer on bike. You've got Baharoth, who's the jumpy Phoenix Lord of the Swooping Hawks, who got nerfed into fuck, but he didn't. Well, no more than he did the previous balance adjustment anyway. And the Avatar, who's resilient and punchy and quite fast.
He's quite resilient.
And 4 units of troops voluntarily, even though you don't have to take them, which is basically 200 and however many points it is. I think it's 210 points solely to score 2 secondaries and score well at them.
Yeah.
It's 150 points. No, 160 points.
What, 65 times 4?
Yeah. Is that right?
No, he's right. 230 points.
240 plus 20 is 260.
130 points
260,
for those for each
None of
2
us know
units. 260 points.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
260. Support weapons are in there because they're really good and they synergize well with Ulthway because they get to buff them with rerolls to hit and +1 to hit for CP expenditures, which is great. Dire Avengers, I'll start in reserves and then pop out to do 33 shuriken shots at people. The Wraith Lords are like, they're the Eldar Dreadnoughts, so they've got -1 damage taken. They're pretty tough. They've got a 6-up invuln because Ulthway gives all of its models in the army 6-up invulnerable save, which if you've got one of their fate dice for a 6 for saves, you can just auto pass any invulnerable save you want. Shroud Runners are buffed down to 90 points for 3. They do a hell of a lot of firepower. Their scatter lasers and their ranger long rifles can be really good if you put a 6 to hit on one of them to just put some mortal wounds on things. The Viper jet bike is in there solely because I had 45 spare points and I thought, fuck it, it's useful to just speed one single little 45 jet unit into the opponent's deployment zone fairly quickly.
It's a cool model as well. It's old, but cool.
And the Warlock in there is designed to work alongside the Farseer on jet bike to score the 3rd of my 3 secondaries, which is going to be a psychic-based one, probably the Warp Ritual we talked about, where the Farseer moves into the middle of the field using his jet bike, does the psychic action to perform his action, and then the Warlock, who's sitting back here, 18 inches away, casts Quicken on him to give him an extra move, and he'll just like fly backwards out of vulnerability. The scoring part of this is the Rangers. So all 4 of them will deploy on the board. I'll spend 2 CP with a stratagem called Phantasm to pick 3 of them up after the first turn has been rolled at the start of the first battle round and put them straight away into strategic reserves before anything else is done. Then I'll have 1 Ranger unit sat on the board to begin scoring the Scout the Enemy secondary, where he does an action for a couple of CP. And then I'll keep the other 3 Ranger units, and I'll dribble them on later. So 1 comes on in turn 3, 1 comes on in turn 4, 1 comes on in turn 5. They'll come on in backfield. They'll do the same action in the opponent's backfield. So I'll theoretically score 2-2, 4-4-4 for that secondary. Meanwhile, I'll also be scoring behind enemy lines.
You can also do that really effectively with Warp Spiders on the Eldar, can't you?
Yep.
What's the unit that comes in and out every turn as well? What are they called?
Swooping Hawks. Yeah, so Baharoth, the Phoenix Lord Swooping Hawk, can just jump into their backfield. The Shroud Runners are jet bikes, so the move of 16-inch. They also start with a pre-game move after deployment, so they can move 16 before the game starts. The Viper's a throwaway unit of 45 points to do exactly the same thing. So this is an army that can pretty easily get in your backfield. And meanwhile, in the middle of the field, I've got the Avatar surrounded by 3 resilient Wraith Lords just going stomp, 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 stomp.
Yeah, it's nice. Eldar are strong right now, man. Eldar were strong before Armor of Contempt. I guess they're even stronger now. Did points change a lot with this, or did it stay much and such?
Farseers and Warlocks went up. Shroud Runners went down. Swooping Hawks, the aforementioned jumpy, winged Aspect Warriors, went up from 20 points a model to 25 points a model.
No, that's a big jump, okay.
25% increase.
They weren't very strong against...
Yeah, they were really, really strong. They were massively undercosted before.
There were builds based on what is their version of successor chapters traits, spamming them and doing horrific things with them. So, yeah, they had to go.
Yeah, I think that their 25 points is probably reasonable for what they can do. They're so fast. They don't do a lot of damage, but they're so fast.
Yeah. There's not a lot in this army. It's not massively killy.
It's not very killy, and apart from your kind of core, it's not very tough. But what it is very scory.
And there's enough killy and resilient stuff just kicking in the middle. So the Avatars take every bit of damage it does to him is halved, rounded up.
He's half damage, isn't he?
And Eldrad is going to cast Fortune on him to give him a 5-up Feel No Pain, and he's got an armor save and an invuln save. and everything with an Ulthway trait has got a 5+ save against mortal wounds on top of all of that. The Avatar doesn't get that, but the Avatar's pokey enough as it is. I like it. I'll give it a go.
Yeah, why not? Looks fun. It's certainly very fluffy. It's going to play very Eldar.
The main reason I wanted to submit this and talk it through here is to go through the Rangers synergy with the secondaries and how they're just going to go into your backfield alongside the Shroudrunners, alongside the Vipers things that can fly in there, Baharoth, and just do that to score loads of points.
Yeah, it's nice that they're in there for a reason, isn't it?
It's a fucking nightmare.
Because before people were running 3 units of Rangers just because they were the cheapest way of filling in 3 troop slots.
Yeah.
But this time they're in there for an actual reason, so I think that's quite nice to see.
I did think about putting the Corsair troop unit in there instead of a unit of Rangers, because they're 50 points for 5 models. But the secondary in question, the Scout the Enemy, the action only finishes during your turn if a Rangers unit does it, so it's got to be them.
I see. Cool. Yeah, no, it's a good. I like Eldar right now. I think they're
It's a fun list.
Yeah,
and I think I can field this. No, I need to buy 10 more Rangers to be able to field this list.
That's not a huge.
No, it's not a huge
number, is it?
I mean, that's a goal. If someone's trying to build a new list for this edition, buy 10 models. Don't go out and buy. Don't do what Andrew did, which was yesterday. I don't know if you saw my stream. He bought 4 gladiator tanks.
Oh, jeez.
You can only field 3. No, because of different names.
He did 2.
All the 3 of them are different date sheets. Yeah.
There was a brilliant clip on my stream where he was like, "I just love gladiator tanks." So it's like,
Andrew is just the force of fucking nature, isn't he? Really,
he is. What's scary is he had them painted already. I mean, that tells you the quality of the paint job. But I mean, they're painted.
I love you, Andrew. You're crazy, but fucking man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy seriously puts me at shame on how much you can get done in the amount of time.
Next slide.
What we got going on? We got Part of Glory, have we?
We've got one slide where I put a few images you guys had put together.
Awesome.
I haven't done Plier of Glory.
It's because it's not the proper episode.
It's been a week since the last one.
So, I was going to say, but I mean, I
that's
do
your
it
pile
first
of
place.
glory, is it? That's literally a glory pile thing. Yeah. All right. Awesome.
Yeah, I felt very pleased about that.
It's a shame it's transparent and therefore not easier to see in pride of place in your display behind you. But maybe you can mock up a little sort of white background or stand for it or something.
Yeah, I think he's going to make big neon arrows pointing to it.
Line it with a little LED strip pointed inside so it lights up. Yeah,
that's what I need. Yeah, those Philip Hue LEDs around it. Yeah.
I'm
going to add loads more first place tournaments. It's the first of many, Mark.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
100%. I'll be here grey and old, and I'll be like, I came second again.
What, more so than we are already.
Oh, wow. Yeah, sure. Okay. We're going there, are we? All right,
hey, it's not just you, mate.
We're not far off. There's a lot
guys
of grey.
have
I have to shave my beard off every now and again because there's too much grey in it.
I haven't done anything.
You did a tournament, and you got broken arm. Right. So last week I showed off that I was building that little Warhound Dire Heavy Scout Titan for my Titanicus army, and you guys wanted to see it in scale, so I've given you a picture of it in scale with other models that you can relate to. And I finished building it, and I've base sprayed it, and I've base sprayed the base and put it all together, so that is now done.
I'm sure I asked this last time. It is resin, isn't it?
It is a resin model. Yeah, that's right. So it's like 35 quid resin model that was, and the base was another 12 quid from the Unreal Wargaming, I think, provided that one.
There's quite a few
provided. I bought it. Yeah.
I'm a bit hesitant with those though.
Yeah, why so?
Well, the reason is, and I know it's some really specific examples, but twice I've decided to build an army on those beautiful resin bases, bought some of the bases, for the core of my army, the first 500 points, something like that, and then the company's gone out of business or stopped producing the bases, so that I can't get the rest of my army, and twice that's happened to me. So and now I'm just like, nope, fuck it, I'm buying it for display models, and that's it.
That supplier, I bought 4 or 5 bases off them for my Titanicus stuff when I started it when lockdown started in 2020. So they've been going for a few years now. If you want, I'll provide you link and details to take a look, see what they do. I also dug out 2 old assault marines and started to repaint them and spray them with melter guns now that melter guns are now free upgrades for assault marines.
Why not?
So
That's
that's
cool.
what they are doing on my spray stick up there.
That is cool. Free upgrade melter guns is nice, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's better than a poke in the eye, isn't it?
And then there's
Yeah.
some ultramarine, which isn't mine. I can't talk about.
What?
Yeah, that's your ultramarine,
Oh,
Tony.
right. Okay, yeah. This was a last minute, just stuck this in there because this is literally me just pissing about with paint. I had a few paints that I haven't really experimented with, and I wanted to see how they covered and how they blended. So I had Cato Sicarius floating around in a drawer. He's a terrible, terrible fail cast model. One of the worst that I've ever done. There are whole areas of him where the detail is just missing. Which is why I've never painted them before. But I just wanted someone to test out some paints, to be honest. I'm playing about working on a color scheme that I can reproduce quickly but look good for Thousand Suns. So I just wanted to play with some blues. And like I say, I was really just practicing highlight placement and that for armor, just to get a nice super contrasty look. But I didn't want to spend 300 years. And because I needed to practice, we joked about it last time about entering Golden Demon. I don't know that I will, but I do need to practice some sort of basic brush skills. So I said to myself at the beginning, right, no airbrush, no oils, no washes. Here's the paints you wanted to test out. That's it. Just acrylic paints and one paintbrush. And it was one of those, just play with it. So that's literally all I've done. Played with a couple of different paints that I haven't used before. Played with a bit of M&M on the banner because I haven't done any of it for a while. And I thought, well, let's do some M&M for a change. And yeah, that was it. I made a Cato Sicarius for no reason other than to practice and test paints.
How do you feel about the results of your practice?
I
Without
decided that I didn't like, right. So I'm not going to go into massive detail, but the phthalo pigments that I used in the blues that I used are very transparent and they took too long to build up the color, which wasn't great. Which means that you can get a lovely finish, but it takes too long and too many coats to do in any kind of reasonable large scale. It'd be different, I suppose, for the airbrush. It'd be a lot quicker, but I didn't like the fact that then I'll be going back in with the hairy brush and it'd take me too long to do transparencies. So I'm probably not going to use that recipe for what I was planning, but that was fine. That's why I did a test model. Other than that, I'm relatively happy with the amount of time I spent on it. And like I say, it was a good exercise, like with the banner and that. Can I get the gold effect? No metallics. Just use the non-metallic to see how that would contrast against real metallics on a model. It's like, this is the clothy gold. This is the lumpy gold. How will that look together? And I was relatively pleased with it. So I'm pleased with the outcome of my test because it was a test. It was an exercise, as it were. As for the finished product, I could definitely do better. There's some really sketchy blends on there. Yeah, there's some really sketchy blends on there.
So you're happy you learned, basically?
Yeah.
Or with what you learned in doing it?
Exactly, and that's the purpose. And I would recommend to anybody every now and again, don't paint something you need or you want for your army. Just get a random old model out and say, right, I'm going to spend a day or a couple of days, 4 or 5 hours, and just practice. Because it's good for your brush skills that you forget sometimes because you don't use them. You just sort of get into that routine of this is how I paint a model. So I think it's good for you to
fair enough
push yourself and do something a bit different every now and again.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's it. I didn't even use my cheap gems. I actually painted gems properly, although you can't see so much in that picture.
All right.
There you go. That was it. That's all I did. That's rolling on.
Rolling on to final slide.
Oh, boarding actions. We're doing boarding actions next week.
Well, we've put it off for 2 weeks now, so we kind of ought to be doing it next.
I didn't see those void bases. I want those now. I didn't know they were a thing.
Do you not?
They look great. No, I didn't see them. I'm going to buy a set.
Okay. Well, I mean, I put this slide here on the notion that, like, you want to check out our next episode because it'll be exciting. Whether or not it is on boarding actions, I guess jury is out.
It will be on boarding actions unless something monumental happens in the hobby space, like 10th drops or something. It will be on boarding actions because I've put too much work into it already.
I think I'm decided that I'm interested enough in boarding actions now that I'm going to try and pick up the book.
It's a beautiful book. It's probably 10 pages of rules, and all the rest is beautiful new art and fluff. So even just from moving the setting onwards and the story onwards, it's a great book.
I didn't buy all the Psychic Awakening ones because the Psychic Awakening ones were so many of them. But I did buy the three Gathering Storm ones, the Gilliman, the Ianari one, and the Breaking of Cadia one, and they
this
were.
This is a very similar feel to those Gathering Storm books.
Okay.
Because Psychic Awakening didn't really go anywhere, did it? But they were great books, but they didn't really go anywhere.
They were definitely vehicles for the rules. Yeah.
This one's definitely fluff. And rules are backing up the fluff rather than rules with just some random bits in the background.
Yeah, cool. All right.
Okay. So that is my presentation.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for subscribing if you have. Remember to subscribe responsibly if you haven't. Leave us a like if you liked it. Leave us a dislike if you didn't like it. Leave us a comment if you've got any questions or you just want to take the piss. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah. Make sure you remember where the fun is in this hobby, because that's why we do this shit.
Yeah. And don't get bummed out by Arks of Omen, because right now, oh my god, last night's game. You guys, you should have seen it. I just lifted up Space Marines for the whole game without making any saving rolls. It was fun.
I did see it for a bit of it. Yeah. No worries.
But I had to watch it today. I couldn't watch it at the time.
So I was going to say, stay strong, brothers, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Indeed.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thanks, everybody.
Peace.